Greetings and welcome to episode number 41 of Killer POV. I'm one of your hosts, Rob G. from FearNet. Joining me as always is Rebecca McKendry from Fangoria.
Hey, Rob, shut up, Elric. Don't you dare say a word.
I feel like we've done this before.
We have. Deja, did you run over a cat today?
I almost ran over a cat.
Almost ran over a cat.
I would have told you a funny story, but we already did this.
Oh, did we?
Yes.
Deja vu.
Deja vu.
Crazy.
So I'm going to leave the cat story.
I'm not even going to introduce Elric because he doesn't deserve an introduction.
He doesn't.
You know who
Not
he is
today.
already at this
you
point.
should see my shirt. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It is.
You'll
He's
see it in the
wearing
picture.
a Reflections of Evil shirt.
Damon Packard.
Damon Packard.
Very obscure for
Yeah, you
some
got to
of you
fill our
out there.
audience in on this one.
It's a really interesting film that I saw before I moved here, and it's Eraserhead and Reflections of Evil are seriously my two favorite, like, not quite horror films, but films that make LA feel the way it can feel.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Which is like crazy, and like all the stuff you don't see in a Hollywood film. They just like there's these barking dogs and streets and weird encounters restaurant. It's just weird. I highly recommend if you could see it. We're gonna hopefully show it next month, but with Damon. But
he's got a ton of his stuff on YouTube.
Yeah,
Tons
like
of
pretty
shorts.
much
Catch
everything.
up on him. I've heard of him, but I've never actually seen
You
any
need
of
to be
his work.
captive. I mean, look, if you live in the middle, I didn't want to say middle of nowhere. Sorry, Illinois. But if you're living somewhere where you can't see things on screen, like watch on YouTube. But if you ever get a chance to see one of his films, it really helps to be forced to have to watch it.
Yeah,
because they are not like regular films.
Yes, it's an experience.
I'm intrigued how Cantors becomes weird.
Oh man, Cantor's with him. He gets
David Packard
fatter
film?
and fatter and fatter during the film. It's actually what Thinner should have been, right? There's a sequence where he just gets bigger and bigger throughout the film, and he's eating at Cantor's, and it's very strange.
For those of you who don't know, Illinois, Cantors
Illinois.
is a pretty sacred Jewish
Guns N' Roses hangout.
style deli in downtown. Actually, it's West Los Angeles, and a lot of celebrities show up there drunk on Wednesday nights at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's a cool place.
If
you visit, just go there.
Yeah. We were thinking about having Christmas dinner at Cantors this year.
Oh, yeah?
It's just us. And so I was like, I don't want to make a turkey or anything.
Is it just me, or have you gone sexy voice?
So,
holy shit. Have you been smoking like 10 packs of cigarettes?
You should be sick more often.
I have, guys. Dave said the same thing this morning. So, yeah, I've missed last week's episode because I was a little under the weather, and the underweather I had has now turned into a brilliant sinus infection, but I sound like Lauren Bacall today.
I don't usually even look up in your direction when we record. I usually stare straight ahead at a blank wall. And just now, I looked up.
His eyes
and
are
I looked away, but I looked up.
And I see him slowly taking his pants off as well.
Exactly.
So,
Man,
wow.
Elric not here. I think Elric told me once that I was a den mother, that's all he ever saw me as.
I
was
do.
a
Not
den
tonight.
Mother.
Until
I talk like this.
Yeah, I
Wow.
see you as my scrawny tomboy sister.
I'll take that. Scrawny? What the fuck? Come on. I'll take Scrappy.
Welcome to the
okay?
last recording of the year.
Yes. not the last episode, the last recording. We already recorded our best of 2013 with the Bloodcast.
Yes.
Really fun, epic
It's
show.
2.5 hours long. That's going to be up next week.
I had
Perfect
to take
traveling
a break
show.
midway through to go to the bathroom. That's how long that show was.
It was pretty epic.
It was intense.
And there are 5 top 10s minus 1. Because one of the 5 people couldn't come up with the number 6.
You guess.
Don't ask me why they couldn't pick number 6.
You can guess who it is, or you can listen to the
figure it
podcast
out.
to figure it out.
It's worth tuning in just for that
me.
moment.
That was good. It was a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah, it was.
I love having Ryan on and Clark, and that was the first time we had them both on
that was cool.
together.
It was the first time I've actually met Clark. Like we've talked on Twitter all the time, but it was the first time we've actually met in person, and it got a little squeaky.
It did.
It did. There was a lot of like, oh my God. And I don't usually get that way. So it was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a good day.
So no guests today. We're just going to catch up on just stuff we've seen. And we got a lot of great questions on Facebook and Twitter. So we're going to, entertain your curiosities. So Elric, kick it off. What did we see this week?
All right. As per the recommendation of Becca, and I'd heard about it for a long time, but the fact that she really liked it.
Squinted your eyes when you said that, like it was going to be a horrible title.
Usually,
Becca recommended
it. Usually
Ticks.
Becca's,
You finally watched Ticks.
I didn't. I didn't watch that with her. No, but usually Becca has piss poor taste. But on this, one out of every 15 is interesting, and if it involves drunk Irishmen, it's a winner. So I did see Grabbers. She'll be talking about that in next week's episode at length. But I wasn't sure if I'd like it because it has that fun 80s quality for sure. But it really is a really nice little film. It makes you really kind of nostalgic for a type of movie that just doesn't exist. So, yeah, Coscarelli's movies touch on these kind of that healing of movies like they used to be, but this one just really completely is. And I think it gets away with it partially because it's set in Ireland and often smaller countries. I know New Zealand was like that. In like the 90s, New Zealand would be like America was in the 80s. We're always like, it feels like you're like 10 years behind. So it kind of made sense, but it's a really fun film. It's, it doesn't end up quite being for me a top 10 one, but it was like one of the more fun horror films of the whole year.
Yeah, I thought that the script was what really drove me.
And the chemistry and the characters are really likable. And there's no one you don't like in the film, which is a nice change. And the effects just look great. But it's very simple, and I'm amazed they could get that kind of a budget down there. Yeah. But that was great. And that's on Netflix streaming. That's why I'm telling you now's a great time.
On my queue
great time to watch
week.
that. And there's one, okay, so something I watched, it came up, this is weird because we're talking in the past because you'll hear, but somebody mentioned something they hadn't gotten to see yet, which made me want to see it, which was called, and I saw it on Sam Zimmerman's top 10, and it was called Magic.
Oh,
and
yeah,
so
I heard
last
of
night
it.
I watched it. I had heard nothing about this.
Where'd you find it?
I found it on demand, and I had to really look deep into on-demand titles. But it cost money. It was like a $6 thing. But I was curious. I had Juno Temple, who just kicked so much ass in last year's Killer Joe. It's by someone, Sebastian Silva. I wasn't aware of his work, but I think he made that Crystal Fairy movie with Michael Cera that came out this year. I think they made them back to back. Anyway, Michael Cera's in this. I found him really obnoxious. He's meant to be this character.
I know what you're talking about now.
But I struggled with him. I've read some reviews like, oh, he's so great. I just can't separate him from the movie. But the film is interesting. Look, it's shot by Chris Doyle, who shot the one of the greatest remakes of all time called Psycho. Just kidding. No, Chris Doyle's a real artist. He does all Wong Kar-wai films.
You're lucky I had coffee in my mouth while you said that.
I actually did not mind the Psycho remake. I will give you my reasons for that eventually. But
we're gonna have a Psycho episode coming up.
Save it for that.
Okay,
early next year.
Save
So
I'm not a fan. The only thing I'm a fan of.
I'm just saying I had respect for elements of it.
William H. Macy's casting is the only thing
I will agree with that.
I could walk away going, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But man, but the visuals, Christopher Doyle, great DP, one of the best. He shot it. Looks great. It's an interesting film. It's fringe horror, where it's not really, it really isn't a horror film, but there's some elements of it. But it's what I noticed is a pattern in 3 films, and that's why I thought it was interesting. I'd seen a film that I discussed last week called Simon Killer, and then I saw Barbarian Sound Studio, and then I saw Magic. All 3 are almost like inverses of the same movie, which is damaged characters who mentally are not right from the start, but maybe you don't know straight away, but it becomes pretty quick. And all 3 artistically are right up my alley. Should be a movie I love, each one of them. And all 3 I didn't care at all about anyone in the film, and somehow was kept at a distance the whole thing, which was a bummer because I really wanted to like all 3 of these films. I liked them all, but there was no room to really get in the movie when the characters are kind of damaged that quickly. It's different with Maniac because that was so clearly the intent to forcing you into the perspective, whereas this was just I don't know, the Juno Temples literally shows up an island and she goes to Chile and she's already kind of crazy. You never find out why, and then some crazy stuff happens and you're left kind of going, all right, bummer, and you kind of feel bummed out. It's a great ending visually, but
Now, I haven't seen it yet, but doesn't Sightseers fall into that same category?
Sightseers is just pure black comedy.
Okay.
It's funny as hell. Sightseers, the only reason it won't end up in my top 10, and the only reason I haven't talked more here is because I really don't believe it's a horror film.
Everybody's putting it on the top 10
It is. It's making a lot of
list.
lists. It has killing, but you're not really. And and it's got dark humor, but it's exactly what you would say a comedy is. It is a comedy. There's no, it's not oh, it's kind of funny. No, it's a flat out trying to be a black, dark comedy. So you can put it in horror just because of Ben Wheatley, but it has some really funny moments in it. But yeah.
Did you like Barbarian Sound Studio? Because I made it 20 minutes in before I was like, done.
I
don't
don't dislike it, but it's not from, like I'm saying, these films are all 3 of them are literally the kind of film I think if I was pitching myself a film, that I'd be like, oh, you're going to love this. And then I'm watching it, but I don't care. And they're all really well made. They look great. They have an artistic kind of bent to them, but I just couldn't get them. So Magic was probably my least favorite of the 3. Maybe even though the performances are good, I just found it to be kind of obnoxious.
Okay.
I think Barbarian Sound Studio is the most interesting of them, and still, I don't know. I'd be curious what people think as they see those. I think there's something about that we kind of want to watch normal people in leads who aren't so damaged sometimes, or where there's a hope that they'll get through or change. There's no changing for these three. They're all messed up from start to end. So that's a couple of things. Obviously, we shared a screening that I'll let you talk a little more. So,
well, you showed Toad Road at the Jump Cut Cafe. I was one of literally several people.
Well, we knew that this one was going to be quiet. Cinefamily was having a telethon. It's Christmas.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
I was sick.
Yeah, this was a movie that was pitched to me like it's a horror film, and I think people are still more or less categorizing it as that. And
is it officially out? That's the other thing I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, it comes out. I think it's next Tuesday.
Okay, so it's about to come out, and I didn't know anything about it.
Neither did
I. I did, and I had no urge to see this film. That's the weird thing. But go ahead into it.
Let me. I got to look up the some names here, but no, it's this weird. It's I don't want to say it's found footage. It's mostly It's a fictional story.
But you're not sure of that until you research it.
Yeah, until you research it. But it's got a documentary element to it, and it's pretty much. Who's the filmmaker you mentioned? Because it's not the one that I like.
It's a very
kids,
much like Larry Clark or Harmony Korine.
Yeah, it's in that vein where it's
somewhere between Gummo and Kids.
Yeah, this small group of kids that pretty much are just documenting themselves, on a downward spiral, doing drugs and not really much else.
Taking off their pants, puking,
falling
down.
Yeah, and I mean that aspect of it's all real. I mean, they are actual real friends.
But we didn't know that. I mean, we were watching it kind of going at the start. I wonder if this is acting or real. You just don't know.
That's the weird thing is there's a thin line between what's fiction and what's real. But you initially watch and you're like, okay, so that's like part of the found footage angle, and that's a terrible term.
Right.
Whatever.
Doco footage.
Yeah. It's more of a doco thing, and then it's wrapped. There's this weird narrative thing. Essentially, the main guy and the girl in it form a relationship. I got to look up their names.
Well, the first few minutes show how bad this guy is, how he's doing any hallucinogenic. He's just a total fuck up, and then basically meets this gorgeous young 20-year-old girl who gets into their group who has never done drugs. And she basically says, I really want to get into drugs. I'm really interested in that world. I want to hallucinate. I want to do all this stuff. And he suddenly becomes the one going, I don't know if I want you to go down the road.
Exactly, yeah. And so the main character's name is James, and then this girl, Sarah, who's like this, this good girl who kind of goes on this descent once she starts doing drugs. And then like the whole little side story is that there's like an urban legend regarding Toad Road, which is these gates out in the woods, and it's 7 gates, and if they're the 7 gates to hell. If you can,
while you're hallucinating,
you can never make it past the 5th or something like that.
Yeah. So and it has moments that are evocative, and a couple moments that feel maybe like almost a horror film or some sort of kind of psychedelic, weird, dark tension. But it never crosses to a straight horror film ever. I mean, I would never call this a horror film.
No. But I mean, who picked this up?
Elijah Wood. This is Elijah Wood's first release.
Or they changed their name from Woodhouse.
Spectre Vision. It's their very first release.
So, which makes sense because it seems Elijah seems like he is attaching himself to like really interesting. Yeah. Off-kilter genre projects. I've already seen another movie that's coming out later this year that they produced. The Girl Who Walks Alone.
Oh, you've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've wanted to see that for a long time.
Yeah, I saw a super. Yeah, it's an Iranian vampire movie.
Yeah,
I saw a super early rough cut of it. So I know they're gonna. I was like 2.5 hours long the version I saw, but they're gonna cut it down tremendously.
It's in Sundance. It got accepted. Sundance.
Yeah, it's really good. Once they finesse it a little bit because it's black and white. It's a female director. It's not like Let the Right One In, but it reminded me that it had that vibe to it where the vampire element is almost inconsequential. Like it doesn't really matter. But anyway, we digress.
Yes.
So this one, it's the thing that got us is I don't know if I would have been intrigued if it wasn't for the final credit.
Right. The final credit rolls. We're all sitting there going, I wonder what I just watched.
And then the lead girl, it just says dedicated to Sarah Ann Jones, the lead girl.
Was that her real name?
And her real name and her name in the movie, dedicated to. And for a second, you're like, wait, is she, because the character in the movie goes missing, and you're like, oh, okay, so is that like part of the meta approach to this? But you look it up, and she really died right after this movie
on drugs, overdosed on drugs.
Like it's the parallels between the actual film and what happened to this girl are fascinating.
And totally change what you just saw.
Yeah, because then you think back on it and you're like, oh my God.
Well, and I was also kind of lukewarm when I saw it, and I didn't know what to think exactly because I had weird expectations that it was going to be more of a horror film.
Yeah.
And I told Dick Grenett, who's probably listening right now, who couldn't make it to the screen, he watched it after me telling him these stories, and he said he found the film to be absolutely like haunting because of watching it, knowing that
I feel if we watch it again, we'll feel that way.
It's like
I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this because I can't even knowing that she died and that even though that this is supposed to be a somewhat fictional film, that a chunk of it is at least real. That kind of creeps me out.
It is.
I don't know if I would like it.
And I wonder if that didn't happen. Like, if that credit wasn't at the end and I didn't know, I don't know if I would have actually liked the film.
Right.
Because it's an unpleasant film. It's, it's not really.
It has moments that are really genuine. Oh, that's pretty interesting. You kind of want it to go to a straight horror when they start walking through, through the fields and the gates and stuff. But I agree with you. I think it's really strange. I think it's really hard to know how I feel unless I knew that it all depends on, to me, whether she started doing drugs for the movie or whether he just happened to be documenting a girl as she started to do drugs and the director had no influence.
I think it might have been the latter.
Yeah, I hope so, because I don't think I could
have been terrible.
If it's the first one, it's kind of abhorrent.
Yeah, of course, because somebody passes. So, but it does, but the one nice thing, it does kind of make you reflect on like the fragility. And I know we all talked about it after screening. It made you think back to people you knew at a certain age in your life who were doing a lot of stuff, and obviously not all of them make it. I mean, I think often it'll be someone you're not that close with, like a friend of a friend, and that guy OD'd. And I always think that's, it's pretty powerful and it's pretty sad. There's a moment where the lead actor, you think he's an actor at that point, is just going around asking drunk people to punch him in the face. And it was really, I was just like going, whoa, I don't know if I want to see an actor.
Yeah.
I direct because I love actors. Watching actors in pain doesn't do me any
Yeah.
and it was tough to watch.
Yeah, that part didn't seem, that seemed like
I knew that was real.
Yeah, it was hidden cam footage.
Camera type thing.
Yeah.
So it was like
Harmony
real.
Korine for sure.
Yeah, he was walking around asking people to try to knock him out.
There's a film that Harmony Korine made that he never released called where he goes up to bouncers and basically picks fights, and Harmony Korine's tiny, and these guys would basically almost kill him, and he'd have broken bones, and eventually he had to give up making it. It's just like, I don't know why.
What a price.
I am so confused by this.
I know, Harmony, if you're listening, tweet us. But hey, good job on Spring Breakers.
I love Spring Break.
Wow.
He came correct.
Yeah.
But anyway, Toad Road was, interesting, right?
Yeah, interesting is definitely the word. It's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to be for a lot of you people listening to this, but it's an interesting thing, and it's worth researching. Just, you could just Google the movie Toad Road or Sarah Ann Jones, and you'll find a lot of stories about her. Yeah.
What I will say about it is, if I'm not kidding when I said this, if I was Mr. Brad Misk out there, I would hire that director to be a part of a VHS anthology and just let him go do whatever he wanted with it, because he obviously has a great feeling between blending fiction and doc. And I think that could be really interesting.
Is there rumors of a VHS 3?
No, that's not a rumor. I think it's
true.
in the can.
Yeah, that's
already done. Somebody we know just cut.
Really?
Somebody you know really well just cut the trailer to it.
Yes, this is true.
Somebody you work with very often.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but we can't release anything more than that.
Anyways, on to better and brighter things. The only thing I wanted to mention really was earlier this week was the annual Black Christmas screening at the New Beverly. And why? Because you didn't go?
I couldn't go, and I wanted to see Christmas Evil so hard.
I've never seen Christmas Evil until this screening. It was quite something.
It's a bleak little horror film.
It is. I don't think it's a horror movie, and even the director said he doesn't feel it's a horror movie. And it's interesting because he brought his own print of it, and his print calls it "You Better Watch Out." That's the title. That was originally the original title or whatever. But it was kind of crazy. It's a little slow, but once it's an interesting.
I would have played it as first in a double bill. I think it's a bummer that they played it after for you guys, because you're going to be more tired. It's a film that you need to be awake for. It's slower. It's more of a drama. But about a guy who's who's kind of losing it.
Yeah, it was kind of going in a really downward spiral towards becoming. Taking over the persona of Santa, so to speak. But once it kicks in, at the halfway point, I just I'm trying to understand what I'm watching. Yeah. And I mean the closing of the movie is just I had to pick my jaw up.
I think it's my favorite, and we won't ruin anything for you. But I think it's my favorite. It's my favorite Christmas movie, unapologetically. It doesn't mean it's the best. I know Black Christmas is a better movie. I know Gremlin. It's my favorite one to watch, because anytime I see it, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is this guy really. It's something to do with the Christmas spirit, and it's a one-off movie. Lewis Jackson made that one movie. Sometimes that really sticks with.
And
you.
I think this is the last time he was going to show this print.
Oh wow!
He said he was giving it to his because he showed it a few times. times, and the quality of it's deteriorating. And he said last night that he wants to give it to his daughter. And he's like, hey, if we can get a Blu-ray out and restore it, he's like, then I'd be happy to show a Blu-ray, because that way it'll always look, as he originally intended.
Tell stories about John Waters saving the film?
No, not exactly. I mean, there were a couple different stories about how long it took, and just the whole story, and his experiences in Hollywood, afterwards, he had people were, he had an agent call him the next Kubrick, and it was kind of crazy. And then he just had a terrible time with some of his scripts getting around Hollywood, and had kind of bum luck.
Yeah. No,
but it was fascinating. And you know what, Black Christmas, I mean, if you're listening to this, I'd like to think that you've already seen the original Black Christmas. Right. Great print last night. They usually show, I think, Quentin Tarantino's print, which is a little pink and faded at points, but they found a new print that was struck within the last 8 years. So it looked fantastic. And it's always a thrill to me to see a movie from 1974 that has all of the horror cliches in it because it invented it. That's the thing. I'm always nervous about new people seeing it and kind of like, but I knew that and that because I saw that in 100 movies. But it always plays so freaking well with an audience, and even the humor, because that was one thing that got me last night. Was the one scene that always kills is the whole fellatio scene, which is where one of the cops gets duped by Margaret Kidder into thinking the number is fellatio, and then they kind of make fun of him over the whole thing. But what I love about it is the timing, because when you watch it at home, you might think it's the scene's going on a little too long, but you watch it with an audience and it's like they deliver a line, everyone starts laughing for a good solid 5 seconds, and then the next line comes. Just like the timing of everything, like it's just such a great movie, and I love everything about it every time I see it. So
nice.
Black Christmas.
I wish I'd seen it. How was the Hussey?
Olivia Hussey? Oh God, she looks fantastic as always.
Yeah. She was there in person?
No. She didn't come out last night.
You like to revisit her on screen.
Yeah.
So wasn't her daughter in the sequel? I mean, the remake, the Black Xmas. What was her daughter in?
I don't know, but I met her daughter when we were doing Psycho Legacy stuff, and she's an actress, but I thought she was just starting out a few years ago.
She was in Underworld, one of the Underworld sequels, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember from one of those junkets.
So,
but that's a great film. I wish I could have been there.
Yeah. So this week,
everyone turns to Becca and stares at her
Becca
with expectant eyes.
So this week I watched a couple of things. I got the Scream Factory Blu-ray of Die Monster Die.
Oh, cool!
So I watched that. I had never seen it before.
I haven't seen it.
So I was completely taken aback. It's pretty much Lovecraft's Color Out of the Dark story, or Color Out of Space, where a giant thing kind of lands and affects everybody around it, is kind of the general story. But in this case,
what year was that from? Like
this one
60s
is
or?
I would say 60s.
Okay,
yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was definitely 60s. And I loved it just because it had this very pure girl who was kind of involved with all of her father's kind of evil dealings, but it was. I loved how she was portrayed, because she was just this very pure, demure girl. And she kept saying, like, I need a man to take me out of here. And it was such a fascinating script because of that, because it was just this kind of, she kept looking to the man to do everything. She did nothing in the entire script. So that was fascinating for me.
Did he?
He did eventually.
Spoiler.
Yeah, eventually.
I totally led you into that spoiler.
I know you did. So, but in general, the movie was fun. I liked it. I haven't seen it yet, so that was a good surprise. And the Scream Factory copy is, of course, beautiful, because that's what they do.
That's what they do.
And then
It's funny how these titles come out, and I never even knew they were putting these out. Like, there's all these little ones that just pop out.
They almost need to slow down.
Yeah.
Because I can't keep up. Because I mentioned that I just wrote my top 10 list for Fangoria today, my top 10 films of the year. And as a runner-up, I put everything that Scream Factory has done this year, because I have rediscovered so many films that I'd never seen before because of them. Like Deadly Blessing, such a slow little burner from Wes Craven, but I mean, still, it's cool. One that I wanted to see, and it is cool. It's
and not just rediscovery; they are like it's a reevaluation of some films, and these transfers change the way we remember them. Like Seeing the Fog, the way it's meant to look, changes the movie.
Yeah, it's unbelievable
for the best. So it is a really important thing. It has archival purpose, not just fan purpose.
Yeah,
Body Bags was a big one for me.
Yeah, no, you're right. Totally.
When I'd watched Body Bags as a kid, I'd remembered it very fondly. And I really liked that it was almost meta because Carpenter was playing parts of it. And then when I went back and watched, I realized how bad his segments were, but they had a certain charm to them.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we did our top 10 in the future. And I totally forgot about that. But probably
travels.
that might be my favorite like rediscovery, like re-release of the year because the Stacy Keach storyline was so good that you're like, damn, this was imagine if that had become a show. It would have been so cool.
So pretty much everything that Scream Factory has done this year has in some way kind of either made me go, man, I never paid attention to that film before, or why did I never watch this before?
And I Come in Peace.
I Come in Peace rules.
Best release they did.
That was a revisit for me. I'd seen it a long time ago, but it was one that I was just so psyched to see get a nice, pretty wash on it. Some of those films look way too damn good. Die Monster Die is one of them. The color in it's gorgeous, and I don't think it probably looked like that on VHS. So
yeah, I have one of their Hammer ones. I think it's the Vampire Lovers.
Vampire Lovers
looks great. Yeah.
I love the cover art on that one. It's so beautiful. But the big thing for me this week was I finally watched, and this one's kind of a really hard to find gem, so it was kind of like the end of a treasure hunt for me, Blood on Satan's Claws, which this film came out in 1971, and apparently over in Britain, this one is just like a highly regarded film. It's considered to be one of the more artistic films, and it's one that everybody knows about. Over here, MGM will show it like once a year at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday on their television channel, and otherwise there's no other way to see it. It's not on DVD. It's not on VHS. It's impossible to find. And supposedly there's a print lurking about and that screenings have been done at New Bev and Cinefamily like within the past decade. But I found no one who was actually there, so I'm going to call that unconfirmed.
Well, it would be, if anyone, it's going to be Joe Dante because I have
or
heard
Tarantino's.
He's a huge fan of it, and he also is a collector. And I think that's how I first heard about it. And I've been wanting, like you, I've wanted to see it since I saw the trailers from Hell, where I think they did it one of their weeks where that was the featured one. They're like, this is the best British film ever made.
It is.
They're like, this is it. So. I'm dying to see it.
Yeah, wow. The plot of it is it's in like a very kind of medieval-esque British town, and one of the field workers digs up literally a giant claw. And he's freaked out by it, sees it as evil, and so he throws it out, and a teenage girl picks it up. And gradually, the claw kind of infects all of the kids in town. And so all of the kids in town start worshiping the devil. She becomes kind of a high priestess, and they all develop a patch of Satan's skin, which was the other name of the movie, was like the Satan's skin or the devil's skin. That was the alternate title. But they all develop this furry patch. And so all the kids in the town go satanic. It's such a fun little film. And it's... when I think of British horror, I think of Hammer, where they're not squeaky clean, but they definitely don't really push, the kind of films that America was making by the 1970s, where we were starting to get into the like Last House on the Left style films. But this one, full frontal, couple of rapes. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it does sound more like Wicker Man because that goes there too, and that's not Hammer. So
it is. It's very Wicker Man-esque. And I have to say, this is like, considering it's not Hammer, this is an amazing film.
Have I ever told you my Edward Woodward joke?
You have.
God.
You seem to love it.
Okay, I'll leave it.
You don't need to tell it again.
It's the punchline.
Go back to the AJ Bowen.
That's right.
Go back to the AJ Bowen episode.
In order to get Blood on Satan's Claw, I had to get a DVD import from Britain, and even that wasn't cheap and easy to find.
Yeah.
So, I highly recommend that if you can get your hands on this one, check it out. It's really good. And the soundtrack was like one of my favorite parts. It had this really psychedelic soundtrack.
Yeah, we're hoping to start some out of print, or you can't get it in this country kind of screenings, so as we can all just sit down and watch a few of these films, because, I don't care if it's out of print or you can't get it. I figure we can screen it until somebody makes it available,
Yeah.
I have no idea if
until
that's legal.
MGM shows up and
MGM
yells
comes.
at you.
Fuck MGM, yo.
You just got gangster on the film industry.
I did. What about you, Rob? Anything else that you think?
No, I mean, I just, since Rebecca mentioned Scream Factory, I'm jumping onto their Facebook page because they've already got, they've been putting out titles like Fast and Furiously this year that you can't keep up. They've already announced Dog Soldiers and Ginger Snaps for next year, and Sleepaway Camp. And I believe Slumber Party Massacre is going to get a Blu-ray upgrade.
All three, that'd be cool.
All those are great. The one I'm most excited about is and actually, as I'm looking at it, I'm seeing even more titles I didn't know about. But the big one is Phantom of the Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, they're going to do a nice Blu-ray of that.
I feel like I already have a Blu-ray of Phantom of the Paradise.
I think, you know what's funny is that Scream is on the same like path as Arrow, because I think Arrow's working on right now, the UK company.
Yeah.
And I didn't even notice this until I just looked it up now, but apparently they just announced Final Exam and Evil Speak. Also,
I'd seen those pictures recently.
Love Evil Speak. That was
That's
actually,
kinda neat.
Evil Speak was one of the ones that when Cliff and Jeff were here and we were just throwing out titles, Evil
That they
Speak was
wanted?
it was one of the ones I said. Like,
Oh,
why haven't you guys
cool.
put out Evil Speak? So I'm wondering, they owe me royalty rights now. Jeff, I'm coming after you, man.
Well, early next year, we're going to have them on and really grill them over what's coming up next.
And I have to go back and watch Evil Speak because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and I'm wondering if it holds up, that wonderful computer technology from the time.
Wow.
All right, I promised I'd talk about the movie. I'm going to tell you.
Oh,
about the movie.
from last week, right?
So excited about this today.
Well, I'm
Well, because you
I'm
were being
weird.
so weird
Okay.
about it last
No,
week.
he was even weirder because today I
wouldn't
was
tell her
in
in
Jump
person.
Cut and we're sitting at a
Oh,
table
he
together.
hasn't told you yet?
No, we're sitting at a table together today, and he goes, I watched this movie this week. It was so good. And he gives me like this 5-minute intro until finally I'm like, what the fuck is the name of the movie? And he's like, I'm not telling you. And then he just
Why are you going to be a jerk?
I'm going to admit
All right, here
something
it
about
goes.
myself.
Do it
I'm going
right
to admit
now.
something about myself. You know how some people are like hoarders? Everyone has like weird things about their personality.
Yeah.
I don't know what the name for mine is, but I'm the guy who, when I saw Possession when I was young, I started about...
There it is.
There it is, Possession.
There it is.
Drinking
Take a
game.
shot.
I think I started about 18. I didn't tell anyone about it because I loved it so much that
Okay.
I wanted to keep it secret.
Right.
And so it's like it became part of me. And then like when Cinefamily rediscovered this year, so 15 years later, I was kind of like bummed that The Cat was out of the bag. Here's
Yeah.
one of the best films you'll
you
ever
weren't
see.
the only one who watched Possession, dear.
But still,
but
it's
to
like-
me
it's like
I
the-
was because I didn't have any. I never talked to anyone about it.
I'll
It's
take
like that
Yeah.
indie punk band that you love, but
Totally.
you don't want anybody else
It's
to know.
like the fact that
they're
before the
cool.
show started, Elric professed that he will now only wear T-shirts he designs himself.
This is true.
Or T-shirts that like are limited run.
Right.
I will only wear a limited run shirt. You're so indie.
But he's not pretentious.
Right.
Anyway.
Oh, no, Jump
this
Cut
film,
Cafe.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, it's for outsiders. But this should break the
Continue,
rules.
but
Continue with your story.
So this is the first film in a long time that I felt that way about, and so it's kind of taken me a while. But I'm going to talk about it because it is so hard to find, and I'm going to show it for sure very soon.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
He still has not said the title.
No, I'll get to it. The title's not going to sell. You've never seen even a still from this. I'll put money on it. Some people out there will have. Okay, this film I had seen in a video store in Chicago, Odd Obsession, on VHS, like 6 years ago. But there's no every time, and I maybe even Cinephile. Never with subtitles. So it's Spanish. And I'm like, well, that doesn't do me any good. And I look at the back. I then research the movie and they're like, it's like Videodrome and all this stuff. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I can't watch it because I can't speak Spanish. So I spent years, I kind of basically gave up on it.
Becca's got her pen
She's got
and
the
pad
pen ready.
ready.
She's going to try to get it.
I am.
I don't
I'll
want her
have
to
it
ever
by
see
next
it.
week.
My dream is for her to never see this film.
I
anyway.
have my connections, man.
Anyway, so I'm getting to it. So basically, I was on some eBay, I guess, and I found a German DVD where it was never really clear if it was in English. But then I know that sometimes German, a lot of in Germany, it's a lot of people speak English too. So I started digging around. I found one review, just kind of who said, "Oh, I think it's English." So I just like, "Fuck it, I'm going to try it." And I got it, and it was also pristine condition. So they sent it to me, and I've had it for like 3 months, waiting to watch it. I watched it a couple days ago. Okay, here we go.
You do know that I speak Spanish and I could translate for you if
really?
you
You
want
could?
it. Yes,
Okay.
for future reference.
Okay, so the film is by an avant-garde. He had only done a couple avant-garde shorts, but was pretty well regarded. His name is Ivan Zuleta, and it seems to me that he's kind of like Zalewski, regarded kind of in that way. The film's title, the main title, is called Arabato, and it's AKA The Rapture. And basically, what this film is it might be it might even trump Videodrome in terms of the connection, and Videodrome's less about movies. It's more about television. And signals and stuff. This is really about film and connecting film and vampirism and drug addiction. It's basically got heroin addicts, filmmakers, a guy shooting Super 8 film that basically is changing his genetic makeup almost. It is one of the most transfixing things I've ever seen, and yet it's not. It's definitely a horror film because it basically involves, kind of these elements of vampirism and stuff, but it's also kind of unclassifiable. It's a really well made. It's slowish, but it's just so it's so perfectly done for what it is that anyone who loves cinema, horror or not, is going to think this movie is one of those films you're going to treasure. It definitely it's before Videodrome. It predates it by a couple years. It's 1980. It's the only feature he made. He didn't die or anything, as far as I know. He hasn't made another feature since then. It's really it's a masterpiece, and I can't think of the last time I watched something where I went, oh, I just saw, I'm going to add that to my list of favorite films. So,
wow.
So it's it feels sad. I got texted by
Rebecca's been looking on her phone this entire time.
I'm researching
There's a great trailer that I can
There's apparently an academic journal that's written about it in the Arizona Journal of Hispanic Cultural Studies.
It's regarded in Spain. It's regarded as like a masterpiece. Like it's not like, oh, this is a secret film there. It's just because it doesn't have a release here and probably didn't have and probably no one still realizes that this one does have English subtitles. So we could be importing that. But I would love to find out. I can't think of many films that I would love to like just get the rights and release it here because it's so. But we'll definitely have to screen it. But it's like I said, it's not forever. And it's kind of film where I wouldn't just go, hey, I'm showing this movie. I'd like handpick people who I know who would totally want to see this. Like anyone who loves film, like, and especially people like, I'm not just talking about movies, I'm talking about film because it's really about film, like celluloid itself and its weird power. It's really like, I can't liken it to anything that I've seen really because it's not like Videodrome. It's been compared to like a Spanish Videodrome. But so we will post there's a trailer I watched today. It's like a minute and a half and silent and it's fun. We'll post that on our page in case you aren't writing this down. And
I want to see it too.
Yeah, and you will. And we'll all watch it. Now the cat's out of the bag. I might as well die because I got no other secrets.
Now everyone is going to see it. By next week, it's going to be like on YouTube.
I know. It feels like killing a child.
You have other movies.
No, that was it. That was my other.
It.
That actually, no, that one was that was like, I'm not kidding. It was like a few years of going, oh, why is that still not available? Oh, well. And then when you see it, you're kind of like, damn. And it was as good as I hoped it would be, which is kind of rare. So
there was this film a couple of years ago. It's from the 1920s called 7 Footsteps to Satan. I think that was it. 7 Footprints to Satan or something like that. And it's Abraham Merritt, who was the guy who influenced Lovecraft. And he had written this wonderful book by the same name. And then they made a film about it. But the film is considered to be pretty lost. Like nobody can find it. And I emailed the Warner Brothers people and were like, because they apparently own the rights to it. And I was like, why haven't you guys re-released it? And they said that they don't have a print of it, that they cannot find a print, that they, even traveled to Europe to find one, but no one has a print. I found a copy of it that I purchased from Germany, and it's in Spanish, and it isn't translated. There's nothing. It's just Spanish, and it's a terrible print. But I sat there on the internet on a Spanish translator and translated every line as it went. I mean, because it's from the 20s, the movie's only like
so
35 minutes long total. But so it wasn't much. But yeah, it's amazing, and the sets for it are brilliant. It's just one of these things that it's just such a shame that it's lost. It's one of I'll do an invite only for this.
See, that's the thing about like if you're listening to this and you think you guys are that we're just like watching movies, like we really like like you're talking about people who are going to sit up and translate. I'm going to like look out. That's cool.
And you know what's even lamer? Dave sat there with me while I was pause it. Hold on. He just said that she's going to die.
And you know what's crazy about that? If you're listening at home, Dave's her dog. So the fact that it talks is incredible. But so there's that. So cat's out of the bag on a few things.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's time for fan questions.
Yeah, let's see. We got a ton of
questions.
We've said it before and we'll say it again. I mean, we've been doing this show since January. You started early this year. This is our 41st show.
We got to do something special for like our 50th episode, guys. I don't know what.
That'll be
thank Andrew Cash once again.
Let's get drunk. It'll be
tell
our
him what he
worst
told you. That was
episode
cool. Didn't he come up to you?
Oh yeah. Andrew Cash. We had him on the show for the Friday 13th episode, and he had told me he's like one of. I can't remember if he said it was one of the best things of the year. Yeah.
Well, he said one of the highlights of his year.
One of the highlights of the year was putting Killer POV together.
Aww.
Recommending the three of us for this show. So thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, it's cool.
And on that note, seriously, thank you to all you listeners and fans out there. Every week we keep getting, it's just crazy. Every week we get new people messaging us on the Facebook. Elric and I keep meeting new people that just jump in a jump cut that we've never seen before.
Mine's been at conventions whenever I've traveled. I've met so many people who I now consider friends who have just come up because they've heard the show.
I don't want to know about your Extracast, STD, whatever the hell you got.
I got to tell you guys the story on this.
I'm on the commute home and they're like, why is Rob so quiet? I was like, first of all, I'm in an hour of traffic and you guys are talking STDs on Twitter. What the hell's going on here?
No, so what happened when I was at that horrible convention in West Virginia, the guys from the Extracast, which is a really cool podcast. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. Came up and told me about how much they love the Killer POV show. And we immediately started geeking out about like rare, hard to find films, that we loved. And we started talking about It was the giallo porn crossovers, and I can't remember if it was Nights of the Erotic Dead or the Erotic Nights of the Living Dead or Papaya Love Goddess, or it was one of those like, crossover porns that happened. They were like giallo films from the 70s. And I commented that one of the guys in, I think it was Erotic Nights of the Living Dead, had the worst case of HPV I've ever seen. Like his D was lumpy is the only way I could describe it. And that's the only thing I could pay attention to the entire film. So they determined that I have the ability to look at a giallo film and tell what type of STD everyone has. So
wow.
That's what that came from. So, but yeah, that totally pulls you out of a porn if you can just see the STD festering right there. So.
I felt dirty just reading your Twitter feed. Don't do it.
But those guys are fantastic, and I only met them because of doing the show. And then Dustin, who actually left a question today.
Yeah, he's got a question in here.
From Asheville, Virginia.
Is he the Exorcast?
No, he's a guy. He wrote a book.
The Fright File.
The Fright Files.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a
really
minute.
cool book, which I would have loved to have read, but my intern Berlin stole it from me because she thought it was so cool. Berlin, give me back my book.
Because you made her read it. Because you don't read. Because you live in LA. No one reads.
No one reads here.
I was like,
No
Berlin,
read.
read
Get
this
outta
for me.
here.
I need
That's
a
why
book
we
report.
invented Twitter, bitches.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to read.
So,
I only read subtitles.
Yeah.
let's start with the Facebook questions, and then you and Elric's got ones from Twitter.
Yeah, there's a couple on Twitter.
And there's so many good ones, so thank you guys. You guys are awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, starting off, Patrick Jennings. Let's see. Any insight on why so many horror movies, even the new ones, are not released on Blu-ray? Scream Factory is a champion for us high-def fans, but it's so disheartening to see so many brand new movies, interesting-looking movies released every month on the old standard def DVD, doing a complete disservice to the filmmakers, which I flat out refuse to purchase.
I did a meeting on that 2 days ago.
I was going to say, Rebecca's raising her hand.
I am. I'll field this one, guys.
Okay, I have a few thoughts too, but go ahead.
So there's a couple of reasons. One, and it's a sad thing because a lot of the distributors are now feeling that the DVD market is dying. Mm-hmm. And so when they see, or I'll say the home video market, like the purchasing physical discs market, that they feel that it's drastically decreasing. And so when it comes to where are you going to put your money, most people don't feel that, it's a lucrative place anymore because you're not going to sell nearly as many Blu-rays as you would say get hits off VOD or make money off Redbox. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird thing that I'm learning. Like Walmart, the upscale that they have on their Blu-rays is so much more than DVDs. So you end up like, just saying this from dealing with the Fango releases, we sell so much more on DVD than we ever would dream to on Blu-ray just because Blu-ray costs more.
Yeah. And also I imagine a lot of people, besides collectors, don't even bother having Blu-ray players.
Yeah.
So if a lot of people have DVD players, if that's still the main way to watch something, then clearly the Blu-rays will get.
Yeah, look, we're cinephiles, so of course we're going to have the best. We want the best system ever. But I always equate everything to my family, my brothers and my none of my brothers or cousins have Blu-ray players yet. They're still on DVDs, and DVDs have declined steadily over the last couple of years. Blu-ray, I don't know how much more expensive it is, but it's definitely more of a cost to get things on Blu-ray because of the space. So I
think it's like 4 or 5 times the cost of a DVD.
Yeah,
it's actually. I get people sending me Blu-rays like Toad Road.
Yeah,
and they ask for it back.
Yeah, because
no one's ever done that with a DVD.
We get that from like a lot of the publicists who will give us contests on Fango's site. They will specifically say, we will give you 10 DVDs or 2 Blu-rays.
Yeah.
The
So
contest.
really it's a
and so
big
we
contest.
always take DVDs. So like you're always going to get the DVD when we do the contest giveaways.
Yeah. So Patrick, it's a number of things, but mostly it's a cost thing. I mean, it just costs more.
And who has
most people still have DVDs. Not as many people as you'd think are upgraded to Blu-ray. The thing is, Blu-ray became a format in the last several years. I remember because I was working at a video store at the cusp of kind of the economic crash we had, so everyone was expecting Blu-ray to take off immediately and it didn't. And at the same time, it's like DVD started to die and then Blu-rays didn't take off the way it was. Now it's starting to catch up because Blu-ray players and Blu-rays in general are getting a lot cheaper than they were.
And there'll be the festival standard, like if you're submitting your film to a festival, you want it to look the best.
But this has been a really interesting time because I remember very well the VHS DVD switchover because there was definitely a day when I said, you know what, I want to buy all these things I own on DVD and I'm selling all my VHS tapes.
Right. Yeah.
It was a very like specific year where I was questioning whether to buy the DVD or the VHS of something. And then immediately I went to the DVD. But this has been drug out over 4 years. And I think a lot of it is because of the economic situation that then the crash happened. And even though, the government might be preaching that we're firmly out of it, a lot of people are still struggling. And we're also at this weird cusp of a changeover from buying a DVD to just, it's on Netflix for free, or I can just get it off Amazon for
it's on your computer as a file or something, which I still am I do like.
Yeah, I'm a physical guy too. And most people that listen to us are probably collectors as well. And they want to physically own this stuff.
Mine depends on the actual movie, because there's definitely if a movie comes out that I love, grabbers, like I watched it on Netflix streaming, but then I ordered the Blu-ray because I wanted it.
Yeah.
I wanted it in my collection. But like Toad Road, I know I'm going to end up seeing it just because you guys have piqued my curiosity.
Right.
But I don't want to see it enough to buy it. So I will watch it off of Amazon.
I only need to own things that are, of interest to me. I know what you mean.
But there are certain things that are in my collection that I won't part with, even though that I will never watch them again, which is
Rob
also
has to buy everything if he's going to continue the Rob G video store.
Well, I mean, I've always had a collection. And the thing is, I mean, in the last several months, I've upgraded my system, and now DVDs don't look good on my TV. It's like the Blu-rays look better. So now I'm like selling off my DVDs. And that's the other thing. People are like, how do you have all this money to spend? I was like, calm down, people. Right. I sell all my old stuff and usually trade it in for credit. So it evens out somehow.
And that's a big one for me. I never, even if I'm buying something like the Grabbers Blu-ray, I never buy it brand new. I always get it used because there's no difference. So.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're listening to this, I go to a website every morning called blue-ray.com. And right at the top, they have... I'm
writing this down.
There you go, blue-ray.com. And every day, every morning, it gets updated. There's a little bar at the top that says best deals. You click on it, deals by day. And it links to Amazon links for... If one day something's $4.99, that's normally $20, it'll link to it. And it's weird. You have to go through this website, because if you could, like, for the longest time, I looked up American Psycho on Blu-ray, and on Amazon, when I looked it up, it would be like, $15, $20 or whatever. But then through the link on Blu-ray.com, it still takes you to Amazon, but it takes you to a link where they charge $4.99 for some weird reason. It's really bizarre.
It's called Amazon Hellfire Club. It's just you just do _ Hellfire Club, and it takes you to a secret dark place where
you sold your soul to Satan, but you do get your disc for $4.99.
Yeah. So check that site out. That's because you would be surprised how many deals I've gotten on movies and box sets, and that's how I get all my 3D stuff, is I wait for a ridiculously cheap price, and I'm like, I can't pass that up.
The one that I do is Amazon has a watch option.
Yeah.
So whenever I log in, it'll I've got a feed of the rotating prices. So when it comes to something like Blood on Satan's Claw that I'm staring at and I'm like, it's like $35. I keep an eye on it so that, when it drops down to 20, I can be like, okay, I'm game now. So, yeah. And then some of them just escalate beyond control.
So I think we answered that question. I mean, trust me, I feel you. The Loved Ones with that Australian movie from a few years ago.
Oh yeah,
that's only on DVD. I wish I could get a Blu-ray, but it's not.
Such a shame. It's such a beautiful film.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's probably a cost thing. They can't afford to put out both formats. So.
And I'd say that definitely also depends on the distribution house too. If it's a niche distribution house like Alamo or Scream Factory that knows what they have, that they have to put it on Blue or fans would bitch. Or if it's a major studio, then they will do the Blue. But if it's kind of, like I'd say in the Image Phase 4 lines, you're not always going to see a DVD release or a Blu-ray release, excuse me.
And actually, as Scream Factory mentioned, there's a reason some of their things are DVD and Blu-ray, and sometimes it's just the Blu-ray, like Rolling Thunder, for example, because Scream Factory in their licensing agreement can only do the Blu-ray. So in some cases, if it's a DVD or a Blu-ray from a company like Scream Factory, that's all they have rights to do. So that's
Did Bad Dreams ever go on Blu-ray? Or was that just
that's coming with Visiting Hours?
Yeah,
they did a DVD of it. They announced a Blu-ray version coming soon.
I remember the DVD. Yeah,
and I think they did
buy that on Blu-ray.
New features for Visiting Hours.
That was another revisiting for me. I remembered I'd seen both when I was a kid, and Visiting Hours was rather boring, but I really liked Bad Dreams.
I like Bad Dreams a lot. I think. All right,
let's get through these other ones. All right, here's Dustin Putman. Thanks to Rebecca for the mention of his book, The Fright File. On the show a couple weeks ago. He met you at the 35 Years of TerrorCon and loves the podcast. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about undiscovered gems, horror films that you really love, but which few others seem to have heard of, or that might not get the credit or attention they deserve.
It's kind of the whole show for us.
Yeah,
I think we also
it,
just did that.
No, yeah, I mean, we did that at the beginning, but I actually read this earlier and can do. I think we should just throw out one or two quick titles. Yeah. Sure. For me, I mean, I do articles like this on FearNet all the time. One I'll recommend right now. There's a little movie that I discovered back in New York years ago called Little Aaron Merriweather. And it's it's a super low budget movie by these filmmakers. David Morwick he stars in it and he wrote and directed it. And it's kind of like a weird take on the Little Red Riding Hood. But knowing David, he's a huge fan of the original Halloween. So even though this is the mid 2000s that it was made and came out, it doesn't play like a modern slasher. It feels like a late 70s, early 80s slasher movie. It's also kind of, not to discourage you from seeing it, but it's kind of bloodless. It follows the format of Halloween to a T. And it's pretty much this woman that dresses up as like Little Red Riding Hood when she kills people on a college campus. Really, really cool little movie. Really, that's a deep cut that most people don't know about. It came out under the radar. I wish a company like Anchor Bay would have picked it up because they would have been ideal for it. But I think it was put out by a company called Indican. And,
I know Indican.
Yeah, and unfortunately, their stuff doesn't get that big a release. But there's that one, and I always pair that up with Malevolence, the one that Stephen Mena did back in like 2004. Which was, to me, a Long Island filmmaker. He made a prequel to it recently called Bereavement. But Malevolence, and I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix Instant. The reason I like Malevolence is because it's what Rob Zombie's Halloween remake should have been. It's essentially a remake of what the basic gist of what the Halloween story is. But if it was modern and like how a kid becomes a Michael Myers type. So I really dig that. And actually, I remember seeing it in theaters and it scared, because it was one of those rare movies that actually, it opened in Long Island originally on the big screen, and then slowly went out to a few other theaters here and there. And every time I brought friends back, we just would watch other people's reactions, because it really did have a lot of really cool scares in it. And it was nothing new. It was just a lot of craft behind it. And it combined everything that like Wes Craven and John Carpenter, all those dudes did. And the other thing is Steven, I stalked him I was like, who the hell made this movie? He lives here in Long Island. I'm finding him. So I stalked Steven and he'd always said that it was the middle part of an intended trilogy.
Wow.
So when you know that, you watch it and you could kind of sense the beginning and the after story. And he finally got to make Bereavement, which is a really, really rough movie, really, really tough to get through.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, that's the prequel. Leads up to what happens in Malevolence.
And then he remade Malevolence as Rites of Spring.
Oh, no.
But if you're listening, that's a joke.
That's an inside joke. No, The Rites of Spring is very similar to Malevolence, though. Oh. But I say you see Malevolence.
Okay. So I haven't seen Malevolence. I have seen Rites of Spring.
Yeah.
So those are my two really obscure, underrated ones you should check out, Dustin. Do you guys have any off the top of your head?
I do. Actually, I have three that I'll throw your way quickly. So the first one is one that I don't know if I've mentioned on the show before, Paper House.
You have.
Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. Go ahead.
No, you mentioned it in...
Paperboy. I saw somebody write about Paperboy.
I got all excited.
I have a VHS copy of that, and yeah, it's a good film.
Wait, Paperboy or Paper House? Paperboy's new film, isn't it?
No. Yeah, Paperboy is a new one, but she meant Paper House.
I have a Paperboy from the 1980s.
No, there's a Paperboy was the guy who made Sapphire
Lee Daniel.
Push. Yeah, Lee Daniel made.
Okay.
That's a different one.
I have a Paperboy from the 1980s. It's a horror film. Never released a DVD that I've yet to watch. Now I have to go back and check that one out too. But Paper House is one of my kind of hidden gems that I really, really love that film. And it's a definite shame that it's never been really released in the U.S. aside from a pretty brisk
by
VHS
the director
release.
of Candyman.
Yep.
I want to say that I was working on our schedule page for FearNet for that movie. I think we're going to have it on the web for free for a couple days.
That is amazing.
Pretty sure.
And
I have to double check.
I encourage people to watch it. It seems like a children's film at first because it's about a little girl who has a fever and they don't know what's causing it and she can't get rid of it. But all she can do is lay in bed and be sick and draw. And sometimes she'll have these fever dreams when she goes inside of her drawings. And there's nightmares in there, but not really nightmares. She creates a house in there and she finds a boy living in it. Mm-hmm. And she's trying to save the boy, but she's bouncing back and forth between reality and inside her drawing. And you never really find out what's real. And it is so scary at points and so cherub-like at the same time. I love that film. I love the film. The closest thing I've ever seen was Neil Gaiman did one a couple of years ago called Mirror Mask that was put out by Henson.
Yeah.
That is similar in the scary kids element, but Paper House is better. So I definitely will recommend that one. The next one that I'll recommend, I know I've talked about it on the show because I talked about it with Darren Lynn Bousman, Midnight Ballad for Ghost Theater.
Oh, right.
Which is a Korean film. Never got a release here in the U.S., so you have to get the Korean import. And that's another one that I would love to show at a kind of hidden invite-only screening.
That title makes me not want to see it.
It is so
I don't like
good, though.
musical.
I know. But it's when you think musical, think of it in terms as like an adult musical. So think of it like The Happiness of the Katakuris or like Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Okay.
And it's about a little girl whose grandmother has passed away, or she doesn't know that. Her grandmother is dying and says she's going to see a movie one last time, and she disappears inside the theater. And so the girl gets a job at the theater because she's looking for her grandmother. Like she's trying to find her grandmother's ghost or her corpse or something. And what she does discover is that the theater is haunted by the ghosts of films past.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's very cool because each
I'm a
one
total
tells a story. I know.
I feel like a
It's very
Scrooge or something.
yeah,
This is like my Scrooge moment.
Yeah. I'm glad you like it now. So, but each one of the characters that she meets has a story. There's a projectionist, there's actresses, there's a guy who was a soldier who just went to see films a lot. And it is so good and so smart and so sad at the same time. It's the one film when people have said, what would you like to remake? I would love to remake an American version of the film. Just because it's like Hugo. It's like Scorsese's Hugo. It's like that, but a little bit more adult. So I highly recommend that one if you can get your hands on. And then the last one is kind of an oddball film, Dr. Caligari. And
the new one, the newer one.
This one, it's
not the
from
original Robert Wine.
This one's from the 80s.
Right.
And so, this is not Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is supposed to be the sequel. And it was made by a porn director in the 1980s. And the guy's name was Rince Dream. And I have stalked this guy online so much trying to find him, like finding out what his real name was and then contacting his agency and then contacting people on Facebook with the same name. And I cannot get anybody to respond. But he made a sequel to Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. And it's about Caligari's daughter, who now runs an insane asylum and is practicing weird experiments on her patients. And the whole thing is set on like this weird film student-esque set. I mean, it's the same type of set style as Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, but where it's very expressionistic and pointy, but it's brightly colored and all of the language is broken up. And it's just, if David Lynch took acid, this is what you would end up with. And it's so weird. And because
he might have already taken acid to create what David Lynch is.
That's true. So
you're talking about an extreme vision now.
Yeah, it's so weird. And actually this one, I convinced Quentin Tarantino to watch once, and he came back and he was like, Becca, this is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. And I don't think he liked it very much. And I was like, it's brilliant, man. How can you? It's brilliant. So yeah.
I wish you had that tape recorded.
I do.
Fucking Becca. I'm not even going to try to imitate Tarantino. That'd just be sad. I'll do a couple quick ones. The weird thing about that question is I know Becca is the same, is I think that's where the majority of my favorite films lie.
Yeah.
So what's hidden gem to one person might to me be like, that's just one of my normal favorite movies. So it's hard because like I would be talking about, obscure Larry Cohen. Is the stuff obscure? Is that mainstream? I don't even know.
Right.
But so I'll go, something that is a lot harder to find. Like a couple weeks ago, I talked about The Black Room. That's still probably my pick of this year besides Arabado of Discoveries. But two films, I'm going to pick them both from the Czech New Wave, which is a really exciting period because it was a lot darker. French New Wave was more about art and kind of had a lightness and riffing on the gangster films of America. The Czech New Wave was far darker. They had just been, going in and out of communism and stuff like that. So they made two films that are really dark. I've talked about maybe briefly Valerie and Her Week of Wonders. I just think is like a perfect movie. It's like a gem if you're into something that is a little more like a fable or fairy tale. It has vampirism. It has puberty. It's just perfect. It's like it's one of those films where when you discover, you go, wow, I can't believe I hadn't heard of this. But even more than that, one that I've carried with me a lot longer because it's a lot darker and maybe a little less obviously a horror film because it's not about a vampire. It's called The Cremator. And Juraj Herz, I think he was a Czech animator like Jan Svankmajer, who's the famous one. You would have seen a lot of animations he's done. And he made this film. It's all shot with a fisheye lens. It's black and white, and follows this guy who's a family man. He seems like a nice guy, a good guy, but he's a cremator. And eventually it goes as it goes. It's kind of a black, but like about the darkest comedy I've ever seen in my life. And by the end, he's like even trying to knock off his family members to kill, and he's like trying to do it because he wants to get ahead. Because it's probably, I don't know enough about politics to understand what it's saying about communism, but it's clearly somebody's take, like a dark horror. It's incredible. I think there's there's definitely like a Artificial Eye or one of those company release. I don't know if there's an American one, but I'd highly recommend looking at these trailers of these, and you'll be like, these will be pretty amazing. Like not what you expect when you hear somebody talking about a foreign film. You'll suddenly see a trailer to Valerie and the Week of Wonders. And you go, oh my God, it's this giant production.
It's beautiful.
And,
it is a beautiful
and
film.
The Cremator is just a really, really focused, dark film. So we could, I'd also throw out things like Tetsuo Iron Man. I mean, there's just movies that you'll see if you're a film obsessed person.
Is Tetsuo unknown?
No, I'd say it was definitely a fringe film for a long time. Now it would start to make lists of, craziest movies. But, that's the internet has changed that. Lists emerge now all the time because people need content for their websites,
Constantly.
My least favorite word on earth.
I was having this conversation with Lawrence from FearNet earlier today because of my blog that I do for FearNet, The Unseen. And when I was doing these weird little niche films that like only I had ever heard of, like Midnight Ballad for Ghost Theater, I actually wrote about, apparently they weren't doing as well as when I wrote about things like Exorcist 3 and Rock and Roll Nightmare. So I shifted the blog to be more films that you may not have watched recently. So like this week I did Event Horizon, which I look at and go, everybody's seen that one, but apparently not.
Yeah. I mean, you also have to remember that there's constant new generations of kids that are getting into horror again.
Which
so that's why it's worth re-mentioning those movies.
But I like, and probably someone will ask us what podcast do we like. I don't know if that's a question today.
It is actually.
But
I think
the thing I like about doing this and the thing I like about other people's, either their shows or their articles, is discoveries. And if nothing else, I think if you put somebody onto a movie that's truly interesting, you're doing something in the world that you love. There's one more I'll just throw out because I just had remembered it, so I looked up the name. Blind Beast from '69, Yasuzo Masamura. Masamura is an outrageous filmmaker. He was like the assistant to Mizoguchi, who's like the best art house filmmaker. But Masamura took those skills and just went batshit crazy. And Blind Beast is this blind sculptor who has made a giant, like the size of this entire studio we're at, has a sculpture of a giant naked woman with like these huge breasts, and he takes a woman there who he's going to be a model, but basically runs after her with a switchblade, and he's got big dark glasses on the whole time, and it's shot like the best looking film you've ever seen, and but the material is so B that you're continually going, what is this? But it's an amazing movie. Really good for people who like that kind of crazy stuff. So anyway, there's a few for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good God. All right.
They won't all be this long.
I wrote a lot of these down, like Little Aaron Merriweather and Blind Beast.
Blind Beast.
I will watch
I'll have to take a picture of your thing because I'm not taking notes today. But anyway, let's go through these a little quicker, I guess, or try to.
Learn.
Well, there's a lot more to go.
We have much to say.
We have much to say. Let's see. Damon Brazil. I hope I said your name right. Brazil, Damon. He's always active on our Facebook and our Geek Nation page. He's the one that asked about Lee Daniels, The Paperboy, if we consider it horror or exploitation. I haven't seen it yet, but actually Clark was talking about it on the Bloodcast a couple of weeks ago, so that's on my list, and I think that might be a Netflix instant as well. But
it's definitely exploitation.
Yeah. His question is, any advice for someone interested in becoming a horror journalist? Wow.
There's a lot I think we could give.
Limit it to 2 minutes each, guys.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say on this.
It's tough. Look, I started Icons of Fright back in 2004 very naively and in a time period where there wasn't really a glut of horror websites. So the idea of a horror journalist has always been weird to me because I just fell into it. All I can say is if you're going to write about anything, make sure it's something you're passionate about and that you want to write about it. That was what happened was I couldn't get a job. I was trying to figure out how to kind of keep in practice with my web design skills. And me and Mike were like, well, what kind of website could we do that will hold our interest? And I've always loved horror. So I'm like, well, I could write about horror every week because I talk to my friends about horror every week. So, if you have something to say and are passionate about it and want to talk about movies, and you have a distinct opinion about it, then I totally encourage it. I mean, it's super easy these days to set up a WordPress blog. And just,
there seems to be a distinction in that question, though, as how to become a horror journalist. Well, the answer is anyone can do that. How to get paid or to make a living.
Thing.
I know he's not asking him, but I'm saying like the difference in the blog world where anyone can do a blog doesn't mean anyone will see it.
Yes.
Or you could, and in LA, people at a really high level do these websites and blogs, yourself included, that don't necessarily ever see funds for that.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
so that's a very different territory.
I do have to say, like on the days that like there was the press junket for Devil's Due at Fox last week, I was booked, Heidi was booked, all of our regulars were booked. Elric didn't respond. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I got to see what I can do. So I pulled somebody off of a blog who it was like their first assignment, but I really liked what they did. I knew they were LA based. So I was like, cool, go have fun. So yeah, it works out well.
There's, I don't know any, it takes a long time, but to answer what Elric said, I don't know how to become a paid horror journalist. Yeah. That's a long, long road.
It is. Well, I think that the biggest thing is that you have to have some type of tenure. Because like when Fango is looking for new writers, we look for people who not necessarily have a built-in audience, but have already established themselves as some type of critical mind in the genre.
Or people you guys know, like you, that have to have that too. But then also, it's just like filmmaking. When people say it's all who you know.
It is.
Well, these things are always about connectivity. And it's not necessarily nepotism. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It just means that if you're in Baltimore in your house and you don't go out a lot, it's going to be a lot harder to connect than if you're in LA or New York and you're constantly meeting like-minded people.
Shaking hands at parties, coming to
that's always the advice for anything. I hated that in film school when people go, "Oh, you got to go to LA, you got to meet people."
True.
But it's just the most true advice that exists.
Yeah,
but I mean, but before you get to the point of meeting people, I think it's very important to build up a body of work. That's what I meant by like anybody can start a WordPress page and just start writing stuff.
Right.
Because I never had any. I mean, I would dream to write for Fangoria, but I never thought it was even remotely possible. I just done Icons of Fright because it was my own site and I had my own passion, and it took at least 2 or 3 years before Tony Timpone was like, hey, why don't you do this? You give me 1,500 words on that. So I just, as long as you're genuine about it, have something to say, you could write anytime you want. Just don't expect anything from it. Build a nice body of work. And if you're passionate about it, people will notice.
Yeah,
that's a thing.
That's the big thing. Like I read a lot of other people's blogs.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of them are unpaid, but I definitely have a stash of people that, even if you're in Arkansas, I mean, if I know that, if I have DVDs that need reviewed, I have some bloggers there that I could send some things to.
Even
that
if you're
a top-notch job.
A woman blogging in New Zealand, somebody's probably reading your blog and taking notice of your work.
Who's a woman blogging?
If you don't get that in joke, then you are just so slow. I'm just sad. If you're not getting that one, we've never mentioned that on the show.
No, we have not mentioned that on the show.
Yeah.
The internet's an amazing place, Shia LaBeouf.
And there we are.
I'm not going to say my hashtag Shia babied, but there it is.
Shia baby.
Shia babied.
But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I think that was good.
Yeah, I'd say that's just start writing. That's
start writing. Start writing. Let's see. And some of these are actually just recommendations for topics because that was part of what we asked for. So Michael Gilmore, who listens, asked for us to do best horror sequels, which have we done? We've done part 3.
We did part 3s, but
we didn't do sequels.
What's the best favorite part 2s? We'll just do a quick one.
A part 2.
Yeah, you do. Yours is the same as me.
Basket Case 2 and Maniac Cop 2.
Okay, cool.
Those are my 2. I actually did a double feature of that in my house.
As soon as I say it, you're going to go, oh, that's mine too. You ready? 3, 2, 1, Hellraiser 2.
No.
You don't like Hellraiser 2? You're
I like
insane.
Hellraiser 3 better.
Oh, that's right, because you're on crack.
Yeah, that's it.
You're like high as fuck on crack. You
I'm
like
high as fuck.
Oh yeah, I forgot
two?
how awesome that DJ Cenobite with the CD in his head. I forgot how awesome that was.
I love that one.
No,
I do.
Wow.
I do. No, I mean,
Love's
2
a
is
strong
good.
word.
2 is better than good. 2 is like expands the universe to mind-blowing proportion. Dr. Chenard, come on.
I enjoy 2.
Okay, all right.
It's not
She's
my
pretty
favorite
awesome.
series.
Actually, that's why I like doing a show because we have these crazy things. But no, 3 I didn't hate, but I just remember going as kind of like a cheap version.
No, but what's weird is I have a lot of respect for 1 and 2, and those definitely are the ones that make me step back and go, whoa. But if like the ones that I will watch over and over are like 3, and there's one called Deader that I really liked. Like I liked the whole series. Like they kept going to like 8.
Yeah.
And the ones where they get like batshit crazy, those are the ones that I really liked.
Well, I mean, on the show we've always discussed that Everyone Knows Evil did too, and we've always discussed Exorcist 3 and Poltergeist, so we're
Scanners 3.
I think,
Scanners 3.
But at some point, I'm sure some other interesting ones. It'd be fun to look through all the series and discuss.
Yeah, if we have an apt guest, maybe we could do just part 2s.
Yeah, or part 3s or part 4, or something where we look at what franchise even made
I'm
it
gonna
past
make you guys watch Chud 2, Bud the Chud.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
I've seen that too.
Boring.
I saw it before Chud 1.
Really?
Yeah, it's my second worst film experience in my life.
It never really got a release here. It went to DVD or it went to VHS, and then it was
I saw it on
really
VHS.
quickly lived. So.
All right. BJ wrote us, good old BJ from Icons of Fred.
BJ wrote us a novel.
She wrote us a novel. No, she threw out 10 suggestions for topics that we should tackle at some point.
Ooh.
No, but let's just whip them off and say, we'll do that one day. She said we should do number 1, food horror. It's The Stuff, Parents, Bitter Feast, Poltergeist.
So it's like
idea.
cannibal horror.
Yeah, maybe
anything that involves food.
Anything with food.
So like stuff,
Food
Stuff
and
with
Hannibal.
I think that's a great.
That might be fun.
If we get a good
Food of
guess.
the gods.
Food of the gods,
Number 2, amazing sidekicks and secondary characters. That's a great one too.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Maybe we get a good actor that we feel is that.
Is it Torgo from Man on Sands Face?
Torgo.
He's got to be the.
We have to have his theme music for that one.
Okay.
Yes. Number 3, why 1985 Chris Sarandon should date her.
Because you put out.
Allegedly. Because your name is BJ.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Oh, come on, guys. Give her some respect. She's pretty good.
Yes, she is. Let's see. Number 4, films you love that everyone else seems to hate. I think we do that every week.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's our line.
Hellraiser 3.
No, I think Poltergeist 3 is really.
Poltergeist 3, yeah.
And we've been talking about our fan commentary. I think deep down we all think we're going to have to do one for
gonna-
Poltergeist
And
3.
you know what's
We're gonna do
weird? Last night I was talking with Dave. We were in the middle of Ralph's checking out.
Her dog.
And yes. So I was in the middle of Ralph's with my dog checking out. We were buying marshmallows and hot chocolate. And I was like, I think Poltergeist 3 is such a fun movie. And in the middle of the checkout line, he turns to me and he goes, "She died, for Christ's sakes, Becca."
yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that
There's
part.
a Toad Road parallel.
There is.
Toad Road parallel.
Wow. That is kind of
It's
crazy.
the Toad Road of its time.
Double
Gary
feature
Sherman.
Toad Road and Poltergeist 3. That's terrible. Let's see.
that's weird.
Number 5, horror movies with anti-heroes. Movies where you want the villain to win. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Yeah. Sure.
That might be
Yeah,
fun.
that is true.
Oh, no, but we did villains, and didn't we?
Yeah, but we could still do other versions.
Anti-hero? Yeah, okay. Number 6, what it's like to be an indie filmmaker in LA. That might be interesting.
That would be interesting. We should bring in a couple of our friends who don't have notable films out, but are constantly hitting the beat trying to get them there.
Number 7 for topic, least favorite movie monsters and why.
What is that tree monster thing?
That would
from
be
that movie where it looks like a giant
oh God,
tree
what is the name
and
of
it's
that
black
movie?
and white.
Yes,
and
You're talking about the 2 towers?
It's called From
The-
Beyond.
from the creature from hell.
It's like Beyond Hell,
from
or
hell,
from
beyond,
Hell It Came.
from hell it came. And what's that creature called?
It has it's like Takanga or something like that.
I mean, it's not my least favorite because it's absolutely remarkable, but it's pretty bad.
No, it is because it's just a guy in a very
Yeah,
stiff creature suit,
yeah.
and it has this permanent expression of it looks kind of dim.
Well,
So
actually, I would say my least favorite though is because the poster is a lie, and it's always made me mad. I talked to John Landis when his monster book came out.
Yeah,
and he was a guest on In Sahara, and he's incredible. He was our first guest, I think. Yeah, I think that was our first show. And what is it? It's the one with the monkey with the skull and the helmet.
Monkey Shines?
No. There's a giant ape, and he has a helmet that's a robot monster. The movie Robot Monster has this totally misleading poster where it's this big ape and it has a astronaut helmet and it's got this cool skull on it. And it's man, that's badass. Watch the movie. There's no skull on the thing and it's totally cheesy and generic, but they made it so much better by the marketing materials of that. It's a great image.
There's a good topic, misleading marketing.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That'd be a good one to do one day.
Hours.
Yeah.
Because when I started out at Fango, they always gave me the really crappy B films nobody else wanted to watch, and not a single one had the actual covers. It became a theme of my first year of writing.
It's like those publicity lobby cards or stills that you say, and then you drives you crazy when you watch the movie looking for that moment. Or it's in color and the movie's in black and white. And you're like, but I saw this also.
It's distracting.
Yeah.
Let's see, number 8. Will one of the 3 of you adopt me?
Yep.
No.
Yeah,
No.
I will.
The ones with kids will adopt you.
Yeah.
9. Universal versus Hammer. That'd be interesting. I'm not very well versed in Hammer stuff though.
Ooh, I don't
For
know.
a topic, I mean, I'd pick Universal if it's just a question. Universal.
See, I'd go
if it's
Hammer.
a topic, then I'd have to do research.
I just Invisible Man wins the whole thing.
Universal, right?
Man, so good.
I
But I love
love
a lot
my
of Hammer.
Hammer.
No, Hammer's got it's hard topic.
Okay. Let's see where we leave off. Okay. Next question is from Alex Bowley. most horrific movie moment in a non-horror film. He says for him, it's Saving Private Ryan. When the two guys are fighting and one slowly kills him with the knife. That scene actually really always got me too.
Mine's always, well, and this is questionably a horror film, Requiem of a Dream.
Yeah,
There's so
I agree
many
with
scenes in that just, they will stick with me. And to this day, if somebody asks me, scariest movie you've ever seen, that's definitely in my top 10.
I agree.
But I don't know if it's a horror film.
Oh, this is easy for me. Because it totally traumatized me as a kid. When people say, oh, what horror film disturbed you much? This isn't really, it's borderline. Dead Ringers.
Really?
Dead Ringers, man. I saw that. It was on TV, and it's one of those movies you wish you hadn't seen.
That doesn't
it's
even
just
show anything, does
the whole
it?
thing,
No,
the
but
whole vibe
as
of
a
it?
boy, not having even like kissed a girl or anything, to learn about Genevieve Bujold's extra hole that her interior, that her vagina has some sort of extra fallopian tube, and all these guys are kind of getting off on it, the idea of it fetishistically, and then they bring out these instruments that have an extra lever, and my brain's just like, I don't even know what a vagina looks like at that point, let alone extra parts. And my brain, I think it really wasn't good for me at that age. It really freaked me out. And the film in general is creepy, but there was that, and there's a sack moment where a sack gets burst. It's like one of the only kind of horror moments in the movie. It's like maybe even a dream where somebody bites a sack or something. But that film, just the feeling of it, I don't think I've ever experienced that feeling again. Because I was so young, and that movie's so not appropriate for a certain age of a child. You know what I mean? I probably was not 8. I probably was like 10 or something.
Right.
But especially when you girls are pretty. Oh my God, what the fuck is that? It's the abject. It's like, so that film definitely stuck with me. So.
For me, it's not going to be a movie moment. Believe it or not, from Breaking Bad. I have not finished the show yet. I still have the last several episodes, but there's something early on in season 5. And if you don't watch the show, I don't want to give it away either. But essentially, I remember telling people that this upset me more than anything I've ever seen in my life, to the point where I felt physically ill. And essentially, it's when there's like a multiple prison shanking. It's just like an unpleasant 5 minutes of a lot of people dying in jail. And to me, it physically made me ill, and I had to stand up and walk back and forth in the room, because I don't know why I'm freaked out about jail in general. I'm freaked out about people.
Home invasion, jails. I'm finding out all the things.
Freak you out. Yeah, being shanked in jail is horrific, and then seeing 20 people get shanked at this simultaneously.
Was it a montage?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, it was, but it was just, I think that's one of the most horrific things I've ever seen.
On the jail thing, I can definitely say Oz used to do that to me, because I used to watch it all the time, and it was like this sick, guilty pleasure for me, but I left every episode kind of shaken and white. And I mean, I can watch horror films till the day ends, but that for some reason really it was visceral, and it affected me because of that.
Yeah. And you know what else? Yeah. I got to bring this up because I viewed a thank or not thank for it. But you posted a video 2 days ago.
Oh man, that thing was incredible.
What was it called? It was like the world's luckiest.
The lucky ones. Like, these are lucky people, because they really are.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That was from Damon Packard.
Yeah,
That's where I found it.
Damon posted this video, and then Elric posted it, and then I reposted it. I think I tweeted it as well. I put it on Facebook. Essentially, it's a 5-minute reel of people, of actual footage of people barely surviving.
Yeah,
they
almost get hit by a car.
But there's one girl where your heart literally stops, where she puts her head outside a train.
Oh my God, yeah.
So she's doing what you always tell your kids not to do, put your head out of a train, and she's her friend's about to take a photo of her, and just at the second that she brings her head in, she still hasn't seen it, a freaking train 1 inch away comes the other way. Her head would have just been off.
It brushed her hair.
It was and these are things that now the craziest thing is these are things caught on camera. So imagine how many millions
oh my God.
are not, or crazier things are caught on camera. But and somebody said, why are so many of these Russian? It's very likely because of surveillance cameras.
Over
are
there.
probably far more prevalent in a lot of these other countries than they are in America. Mm-hmm. But for me, it touched a personal chord, because I came very close to dying once, getting run over. All my friends in New Zealand know this. I was crossing the road to rent Blue Velvet for the first time. Had never seen it. Was crossing on a crosswalk. Got hit at about 100 miles an hour by a car in the rain. It couldn't stop. I heard the skid and starts lights, and I knew I wasn't going to get out of the way in time. So I started to run, and I got scooped up, and my head shattered the windscreen. I flew through the air, and I landed on my feet. I flew through the air and landed, my foot was twisted around. I had messed up foot and stuff, but I was completely intact. And it was one of those moments where you're like, And my friend who was right in front of me, he just missed it. And I kept thinking to myself, I wonder if it hit him, he could have just been dead instantly. And the fact that I was moving, and you just realize it's when you have those moments where you're like, oh, life is literally inches between life and death, success and failure, all these kind of things. And so when I watched that, I felt it all came back to me where I was like, yeah, it's it's something to be cheesy but cherish what you can do because they're weapons.
To me, is the most.
Cars.
I told you I was like, this is the most terrifying 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I had 12 anxiety attacks while watching it,
and it also made me happy because some of them survived.
So of course, that's the thing. It's like I know nobody's going to die in this, so at least I know they'll come close, but they won't actually die. I had to pause it like 5 times because I just I couldn't take it. But that's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Mine wasn't quite as severe as Elric's, but I definitely had my holy shit, that almost happened where this is when I was in high school. I was standing on a curb and a car, and it was a drunk driver, and he started steering towards the curb. And it was one of these things where I was like, is he going to run? Is he? And by the time I realized that he was about to run over my feet, it was too late. And I was wearing Birkenstocks at the time, and he ran over the tip of the Birkenstock. And luckily I was able to pull my foot back. But for the longest time, I kept that Birkenstock with the smushed tip from where he ran it over with his tire.
What's interesting about events like that is, as a filmmaker, if you have a mind, or a writer or anything like that, if you have a mind that thinks about the world, you start to realize things about time that have been used in movies. Like when people use montage or they use slow motion, those things I don't think are just random editing devices. I think there's a place in your life where you do experience time differently. You know how one day's quicker and one day's slower, but there's also moments that are slowed down. Like when I knew I was going to get hit, it was slowed down. I had so much time, my brain went at 10 times the processing speed, so it actually elongates that moment. And so I find that really interesting too, that you realize that you are capable of these techniques that we use for film really can be used in a relevant way, which is weird. But you're always lucky. And I wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened, because I was studying law in my first year of college.
Are you freaking serious?
As a total cinephile.
So unlikely.
And after I got hit, I decided I would do filmmaking and move to America.
What type of law were you going to do?
I don't know. I just did the first year. I was bored.
I'm bored. I'm going to law school.
Well, I'm glad you...
I'm here. I'm alive for now.
Okay, let's see. Dick Vincent asked, have any of you had the chance to check out Lord of Tears yet? I just watched it. Thought it was great.
We did.
Yeah, I checked out the trailer too. It looked pretty cool.
Looked too long. The trailer, it should have been quarter as long as that. You know when an indie trailer, and especially foreign, cut out all the dialogue, but go on for a long, long time, and they have beautiful images. It looked great to me. I'd watch it.
Yeah, there's an owl head.
Well, that's
killer,
that's where
stage fright.
Yes, we talked about that stage fright.
Stage fright, yeah.
Stage fright.
And so I was like, why is the owl man back? But it did. No, it looked really good. But I'm always a little skeptical when I feel like a trailer like that should be a minute, or a teaser 45. When it went that long, but it's just music and you never hear a line of dialogue. It always puts me on the defensive, where I'm like, well, why aren't you speaking? Is it because you don't want people to know you're British, or you don't want the American market to know you're French? You know what I mean? But that's not, it looked good.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it, but I checked out the trailer, and if you guys are curious, you can YouTube that as well. Let's see. Some of these are more topic ideas, so let's skip a few for now. Let's see. Lauren Elizabeth Irwin, this is a pretty good question. Any ideas on how horror fans can connect outside of LA? Any Texas, Louisiana, New York places come to mind? She also asked Rebecca how your book is going.
The book is going well, actually. It's at the copy editor right now, which I'm really psyched about.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
All right. So let's see. Ideas on how horror fans can connect.
Meetup.com.
Yeah. Oh, really? I've never heard of that.
You've never done Meetup? That's how I met horror fans in New York, which was the weirdest thing, because I worked for Fangoria, but I did not know a single other horror fan in New York. And so I went to this site called meetup.com. And you literally type in your interest, and it will kick back organizations in your area. And a lot of them are formed on there. It'll say people who like horror, put your name down here. And then people will start chatting. And then they all say, let's go see a movie together this weekend. And thus you have connected. But New York had 2 of them. They had horror weekends. And then they also had one called The Dark Side of Horror. And I was in both, and they did weekly screenings and everything.
Yeah, we've been thinking about using that site for Jump Cut. You can, as a place, you can offer a discount to groups, and they'll start using your place. I haven't done it yet, but you have to pay a fee to join the site. Quite expensive, a monthly kind of thing. But I did, when I was searching, I was looking up film groups, and there was just tons in LA. So which I imagine anywhere you go, you could start your own group. Yeah. So my advice would be, look for others, but if they're not there, maybe fish it and put your name on one. write a really cool thing of what you want it to be, and then see if people are attracted to it.
Yeah, I think, right in today's day and age with social networking, it did, in Facebook and Twitter, it makes it so much easier to meet more people. I mean, back in New York, I lived in Long Island. We were right outside the city, but, sometimes that's a big hassle to do.
It's still like an hour to get there if you're taking the train.
So, you get together with a group of small friends and they introduce you to other friends, and maybe you have, do little screenings at your place or just find a place to meet. Even when I'd come out to visit LA, I would just email everybody that I knew and I'd be like, I'm going to see this horror movie Friday at 8 if anyone wants to join. And these are the seats I bought because it's assigned seating here. And then you'd show up and like 2 rows are all people you know. It's kind of neat if you can organize it that way.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the things that I did when I first got to LA. I knew hardly anybody here except for one guy, Matthew Curry Holmes. And so I bought a ton of tickets to Possession. And Elric came and I was like, hey guys, I got like 20 tickets to Possession.
It's true, actually. A lot of us did become friends after that one particular night. We had met on Darren's film, but we didn't know each other.
Devil's Carnival
on set, but we didn't get to know each other.
Yeah. And so I pretty much told people, I was like, I've got 20 tickets. Whoever wants to come with me can. And I contacted Cinefamily and was like, look, I'm from Fangoria. I want to buy 20 tickets. And they cut me a hell of a deal. Or it wasn't Cinefamily. It was
Cinefamily.
Oh, it was Cinefamily, yeah. And so they cut me a hell of a deal on the tickets. And then I just literally said, look, I got tickets. I got them really cheap. So you can have it cheaper than if you actually bought a ticket. And so everybody paid me back. But I met so many people at that because I offered the tickets.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Let's see. Dustin Sane. I'm probably saying all these names terribly wrong, so I apologize in advance. Is there any chance you guys could make it out to the Texas Frightmare weekend next year? Would love to meet you. I would love to do conventions.
Man, we haven't even thought about that yet.
Yeah, I guess if we could find a sponsor, that would be the first step. But, which isn't impossible. I mean, who knows how, if we found a sponsor and could sponsor that, we would all go. I think we're all pretty committed to the idea of doing things like that.
Yeah, we would love to.
Or if any festival planners are listening, we will always give you plugs if you want to have us as guests.
Yeah, so, bring us on down. We'd love to do that. I mean, we talked a little bit about doing live Killer POVs this year. We've only managed to do one, I think, at Comic-Con that both Elric and I weren't there for.
But me and Sam and Brian were great.
Yeah. But I mean, I love going to conventions. You got to understand also that we don't get paid to do this. We do this because we love it.
Yeah.
And B, all 3 of us have actual jobs and careers.
Wait, you guys don't get paid for this? Sorry.
Some of us have cafes to run. Some of us, are always working. So the other thing is, it's kind of hard to coordinate and get us to travel, but we'd be willing to do it if we can.
And Fango definitely will support if any convention I go to. So,
point being, Dustin, love Texas, would love to come out if we could.
Yeah.
What city is that in?
Texas Frightmare. I think it's Austin, isn't it?
Yeah,
sounds like something they would do in Dallas.
Dallas, maybe. I've been to Austin and Dallas, and both places are great.
Yeah, I'm trying to. They do one in Dallas. I just don't remember the name. One in Texas.
Yeah, it'd be fun to do one of those.
I'm googling it.
Okay, while she looks that up, Kyle Forson, I would love to hear more behind the scenes stories about you meeting and working with some of the big names or the little names in the genre. He references my story about interviewing Carpenter for They Live. That might make a really good topic for a full. I'd love to do a little bit something.
And that's one thing we have all done a lot of between the 3 of us, like you doing specialty interviews with directors that you would love to meet. And
trust me, I have a million stories.
Yeah,
about the Carpenter one. Maybe if we got somebody, I know we wanted to do one about like doing the behind the scenes on DVD stuff.
Yeah, it could be something
and getting
like
a guest
that.
like that.
Yeah. How about go around the room quickly? Do you have a favorite? Without even embellishing, a favorite interview / person you met, you were interviewing for one of your things, like all 3 of them. I mean, like I've had a couple.
I have bad ones, but I don't know if I have a favorite.
Yeah, I got to be honest that I'm very lucky that I'd say almost every single interview I've done on all these DVD projects or whatever has been predominantly positive. Mm-hmm. I've had really good experience. The only one that was a little off was now I'm drawing a blank at his name, the guy from Bad Dreams.
The one who
unfortunately passed away.
The villain of the film.
It'll come back to me, but Richard Lynch. Yeah, and I didn't have a bad time with him. It was just a very bizarre, awkward, weird time, and I will tell that story in another episode.
Frightmare is in Dallas.
Oh, excellent.
Oh, Charlie Man's going to be there.
Uh-oh.
We want to
Get him on the hot seat.
But I mean, we've met so many people that there's an excitement. Let me put it this way: once the excitement goes from meeting these people, you shouldn't do that anymore. I think, to be honest, I wouldn't say my excitement's dissipated, but the feeling I had from the start wouldn't be the same as what I did now. That's part of why I stopped doing Inside Horror, because I kind of met almost all the people I could meet.
Yeah.
Like after that, yes, I hadn't done, say, Wes Craven and John Carpenter. But besides that, like the first time I'd ever done an on-camera interview in my life. I was not somebody who wanted to do on camera. I'd produced This Week in Horror for like a year of shows, like 50 shows or something, and had always been behind the scenes. When I decided to do Inside Horror, the very first one I had to do was John Landis. And I'll never be able to recreate who was running late in traffic. He called us for a live show. He called us like 35 minutes before the show to tell me that he was at Magic Mountain, which there's just no way. It's 6 o'clock at night. And he's just like, oh, I'm running. I think I'm leaving Magic Mountain now. I'll see you soon. And I'm just like, it's never going to happen. And I was like pacing, and the studio is like who I've kind of promised I'm going to deliver a show. That's the first one. They're already thinking, oh yeah, you screwed up, blah, blah, blah. I'm just sitting there. He made it on time because he said, oh yeah, I just called my wife, and my wife just has this ability with maps. She gave me this alternate route, and there was just no traffic at 6:30 at night.
Wow.
And he cruises in, and you just have and I got kind of obliterated. Like, I mean, I look back at that one and kind of laughed because I'm not timid, but like almost everything I'd say, he'd go, oh, I disagree. And then he would just steamroll me. But it was like incredible, that feeling of talking to this person you loved growing up. Like, try telling your young version of yourself that you'll be talking to some of the people whose movies you grew up in. It's kind of mind blowing.
That to me is what always gets me. I'll tell a quick John Landis story because I've like never had a positive experience with him before. Except this one was kind of positive. I tried really hard to get John to agree to a video interview for The Psycho Legacy because he acts in Psycho 4. He's one of the actors in it.
I've still never seen that one.
He's the one that, he runs.
Not bad. You should watch it.
That's a Mick Garris one?
Yeah, he runs the radio station. And part of the reason I wanted to get him in there is not only because he acted in the movie, but he was very good friends with Perkins. He's the one that introduced and recommended Mick Garris for Psycho 4. And he knew Hitchcock. He used to go out to lunch with Hitchcock all the time on the Universal lot. So I was like, oh, this guy would be great. And I emailed him maybe twice, maybe 3 times. And mind you, these are like within the span of like 3 months. Like, I'm not the sort of aggressive dude that's going to email you 5 times in a day. I'm as professional as possible at this. So I emailed him maybe twice in the span of a 3-month, break. And I'm staying, I didn't live here yet, so I'm staying at Spooky Dan's house, and my phone rings. I don't recognize the number. And I answer, I'm like, hello. And he's like, hey, is this Rob? This is John Landis. And I'm like, oh my God, hi. And he's like, are you the kid that's stalking me via email? I'm like, stalking you? I sent you 2 emails, 3 months apart or whatever. And he's like, yeah, great. Look, what the hell is it you're doing? I don't understand this. And I'm like, I'm doing a documentary about the Psycho movies. He's like, well, then why the hell would you want to talk to me? And I'm like, because you were in one as an actor. And he's like, yeah, and he started telling me like Hitchcock stories, and I'm like, yes, what you're doing right now. Tell me about Hitchcock. I want you to do this on camera.
That's funny.
And by the end of it, he's just like, I don't know if I can tell you any more than I'm telling you now. But good luck.
That's hilarious.
So I was like, all right.
Yeah, he seems like, well, he's out of all the celebrities, there's some of them who I'll see again and they just totally remember you to talk. He's the guy, like, you could meet him 20 times. You could still walk by and go, oh, I have no idea who you are. Yeah. But he's funny, but that doesn't they meet a lot of people. So of course. I still love Landis, but yeah.
I have my moments when I'm kind of like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm interviewing Dario Argento and things like that.
Yeah, that's got to be cool. I've never even met Dario. So.
His English. Well, when I interviewed him, his English was a little rocky, and this is right when he was doing Masters of Horror, and Jennifer had just come out, and I was trying to ask him about where Jennifer came from, and he did a lot of meowing. He was trying to explain it was cat-like. And so he was meowing a lot during the interview. But it was just like, that was my ultimate moment, because I hadn't been working at Fango for that long, but they knew how much I loved Italian films. And so just sitting there and being able to talk to him was just, it was like my pinch me moment.
Yeah.
But the ones, surprisingly, because I've gotten so accustomed to the horror stars, sitting in the room with them and talking to them, and, it doesn't faze me as much anymore, but I'm still a fangirl with everything outside of horror. So like when I met Mike Patton from Peeping Tom and
Faith No More.
Faith No More. Yeah, I guess that's his most popular band.
Mr. Bungle?
Mr. Bungle.
Phantomus?
Thank you. Phantomus. He
Rookies.
was one that I was totally freaking out over.
He's awesome.
And I was interviewing him for this, I don't even remember what the video game was, but it was some video game that he provided screams
Did
to.
you know he did the screen? He is the voice of the vampires in I Am Legend, the Will Smith movie.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
right.
He
did.
is the voice of that thing.
But
which
he
is
was
weird.
one that I was just I am so excited to talk to you because I'd seen Mr. Bungle live. And
Yeah.
when I met the lead singer from Clutch, I definitely was a little fangirl. And yeah, those are the ones that I've kind of... but
Everyone's
then-
got a different, weird thing like that.
But then I interviewed Jello Biafra because he's actually starred in a couple of horror films, and that was my worst interview ever. He
Wow.
didn't even remember the horror films he'd been in. I'd be like, "So you were in blankety blank?" "No, I wasn't." Okay.
Yeah.
For your
Yeah, that's-
IMDb profile.
That to me is a bummer when you interview somebody that you are trying to be professional about and they're kind of being evasive about their career. It's like, well, you did this movie and you don't want to talk about it. But you know what? You brought up a good point about musicians. I actually dig interviewing musicians about horror. I remember really briefly when the first Saw came out, I got an offer on Icons of Fright to interview this Burton Bell, the singer of Fear Factory. I was not familiar with the band. I mean, I knew a couple of their songs and stuff, and I wasn't a fan. But they had a song on the Saw soundtrack. So.
Linchpin is a really good one by then. That's the one song I remember.
And, I was a little nervous about it because I'm like, what am I going to ask him about if I don't really know their music well? And you know what? It was super cool because I was like, you know what? I'm just going to talk to him about horror because that's we're a horror site. And, musicians aren't used to that because they're used to be talking about themselves and their music. And I get the guy on the phone and we talked for 30, 40 minutes about horror. He was telling me how he used to work at Tower Records in Hollywood and he'd always get a kick out of helping John Carpenter. And I'm like, see, that's cool. You'll never get that story out of a basic music interview, but it's like this dude was a fanboy, working at Tower Records helping Carpenter out. So I think sometimes musicians are a lot of fun when you're not talking about specifically, when you get to geek out about stuff like this, we do every week.
Yeah.
So
true.
Let's see. Scott Pliskin asks, what are your favorite horror podcasts not based in Southern California? He gives a few examples. He said his are Dead Pit, Two Against, The Hysteria Continues, and Rue Morgue. I'm only familiar with Dead Pit, and those guys are great. I went on their show once before. I don't know. Maybe I'll check out some of those other ones.
You got to try Exocast. I do.
I have
guys.
them. I like them too, and I actually am subscribed to them on my podcast app.
I've heard the Rue Morgue one a few times. I always thought it was really well made. I tend to listen to more. I try, doing anything too much, you get burned out on it. So being people who put on a horror podcast, I tend to listen to film podcasts or retro cult film podcast. If I listen to something and usually anything that NPR has those film ones, The Business and things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think part of it's just so you don't get burned out on the things that you're interested in,
Yeah, I agree with you. I commute a lot. I listen to a lot of different stuff. Mark Maron is the big one.
Kevin Pollak.
WTF. He's great. Yeah.
I worked at Kevin Pollak's one. That's where I did This Week in Horror, the
Oh,
same
cool.
studio. And so I would be there every Sunday when he taped. So I was there when Peter Weller's there and John Landis.
Cool.
And that was part of the model of what I was creating with This Week in Horror is just his show was doing that.
Yeah,
And
his
so
is good too. I actually just listened to his John Landis episode.
His is the kind of one where if it's a guest you like, you should listen to it.
Yeah.
You don't need to listen every week, but I met Nathan Fillion there once and it was super cool. So.
Okay. This is my last Facebook question. And then if Elric has a few, and actually this is great because I wanted to bring this up this week. J. Michael Kober says, I love listening to audio commentaries and the inclusion of a commentary can often be the deciding factor in choosing to add a movie to my collection. What are some of your favorite commentaries? Either most hated, boring, unexpected? What do you think makes a good commentary, and what are your experiences being part of that process? I know Rob moderated Ninja 3. Great job. Thank you. And I'm interested in your approach. The only reason I'm glad he brought this up is because, The Beast Within came out this week, along with Crawl Space, and from Shout Factory, Scream Factory. And I did a commentary with Tom Holland for Beast Within. And I got a pretty harsh review, specifically pointing out how terrible the commentary is that I did with Tom. And what's great is I actually reached out and had a few interactions with this reviewer because the thing is I am totally okay with criticism of any sort, and this person had completely valid points. A lot of it was oh, these guys obviously neither of them had watched the movie that well or didn't know the movie that well, because, Tom would say something and then Rob wouldn't interject to tell him he's wrong. And I'm like,
well, that's a question. Do you tell Tom Holland he's wrong? I mean, when you're moderating it?
I will correct him. Yes. Yeah. If Psycho 2, for example, I had a, and my argument back to him was, hey, that's totally fair criticism. You're right. Because you have to understand that, a lot of times, sometimes I just get asked the day before, like, hey, are you available tomorrow to record this commentary? And sometimes, I don't really like The Beast Within that much. I'll be honest. It's not a movie I love. I wasn't as well versed in it as, say, Psycho 2 that I've seen a million times. So I was just going in thinking, all right, I'll try my best here. And granted, I because of that, I will never say yes to a gig again unless I'm fully prepared for it. It's just, I love Tom as a person and felt that the only thing that bothered me about the review, which was since edited out, was a kind of harsh personal attack saying, I didn't speak up because I'm too whipped by Tom or something like that. And I'm like, hey man, I will gladly tell Tom if I don't like something. Yeah. I'm friendly. I don't, Beast Within is a perfect example. But, we did the best we could with the commentary, and I'm sorry that it didn't turn out, at least for this one review.
Yeah, that was
great.
I had a chance. I've never done one, but I know what you mean by last minute, because I was, and I think somebody else, you might have been asked. We might have had this conversation. It was like 11 p.m. the night before The Deadly Blessing. And they asked me to record with Wes Craven. Andrew Cash asked me, and I couldn't, unfortunately, because I had to record Inside Horror, but it was like one of the failures of my life. But I also had never seen the film. Yeah. And so I was like, can you get me a copy? And they're like, no. Yeah. And I'm like, then I don't think I could do it.
That was one I got asked to do, and it was a day before. Yeah, but it was also like my first day working at FearNet, and which is in Santa Monica, which is far. I'd never seen the movie.
Yeah, I didn't see the film.
I was like, I don't know where I'm going to find an hour and a half to watch the movie, let alone analyze it and break it down. So sometimes that happens, but trust me.
A cool question would be to us at some point, and we could do this at a different time, is like if you could lead a commentary on any film with somebody around now that you're just really interested in, who would it be? That would be a cool question. That would be interesting.
I'd have to think about that one.
Yeah.
That's true.
I could think of a few, but it's an interesting thing. We can do that.
Yeah, we'll tackle commentaries at some point.
And we'll do some fan ones.
As far as favorites, really quick off the top of my head, Evil Dead 2 is my favorite commentary of all time. Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, Scott Spiegel, and Greg Nicotero. Freaking hilarious. They point out so many errors in it that you will never see the movie the same way again, but I find it all hysterical. And anytime John Carpenter and Kurt Russell get together.
See, mine, I don't listen to them as much as some of you probably, but the first one I really listened to was Carpenter and Kurt Russell on Big Trouble in Little China, and it made me laugh my ass off because I didn't know what the dynamic was going to be, and I didn't realize Kurt Russell's just like literally every 5 seconds just laughing, making and then John Carpenter's very stoic and like, that's right, Kurt, and then Kurt just and it was almost like Kurt smoked so much weed before, even though it's probably not true, and I found it really amusing and made me love him that much more because he's a total goofball.
Yeah, when Carpenter's on his own, he's not as energetic, but there's something. I mean, they're old friends, so I feel like they did one for The Thing that's great.
Okay, I should listen to that,
anytime they get together, I always love it.
And sometimes I don't always like to demystify my favorite movies, and so sometimes I avoid my favorite movie with commentaries. But if somebody tells me, "Oh, that's a particularly interesting story," I'll listen to it.
Yeah.
See, I rarely listen to the commentaries. I either have to really like a film or really want to know how they did something. Like if I watch a scene and I want to know how the effect was done, I'll turn the commentary track on and then go back and rewatch it.
Yeah.
I listened. The one for The Gate was quite good with Tibor. I liked, and but anything that John Waters does, I love his commentaries for his movies.
That makes
just
sense.
because he is so well versed on everything, and you never really catch all of the movies he's actually making allusions to until he's sitting there telling you, like, oh no, that's from Faster Pussycat, that's from Mom and Dad, 1945 hygiene film, and that for me is just so much more interesting. It's one thing to sit there and listen to the filmmaker talk about how they build the scene, but he talks about the inspiration of where each scene comes from, and that I like a lot better. So.
I haven't listened to Joe Dante ones, but I imagine they're amazing because Trailers from Hell is that.
Yeah.
But on trailers, I need to think of a good, like The Burbs. I'd love to hear him talking through
does he do commentaries?
I don't know.
Because I'd have to double check and see if there's one on like Gremlins or anything. There's definitely no features on The Burbs.
Yeah, that would be like definitely a dream thing that, that's what I could lead. I mean, I would happily lead Joe Dante talking about The Burbs. I would do that in a heartbeat, but I'm not alone.
Okay, what are some of the Twitter questions?
Oh, we just have a couple. This one's tough, and I've been thinking about most overrated horror film of all time by Derek Faraci. who's on Twitter. Well, name it.
No, name it. Raise your hand.
Blair Witch.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
all
fine.
right.
And Paranormal Activity. And it's not because they're found footage films. It's just because they both kind of, they're okay. But I think that their hype definitely, led to some of the acclaim. It became like this, oh my God, have you seen Paranormal? It's the scariest movie ever made. It's not that scary.
And also, I guess a part of that would be like I just typed in, say, 20 best horror films of all time. So those classics. And when I look at 19 of them, I'll never find a chink in the armor. They're so perfect.
Yeah.
Except then it'll have, Blair Witch or Paranormal where you go, yeah, but it's not going to age well. It's not going to. It's not going to hold up because it's really hard. I can't find fault in the classics. They're.
I can watch American Werewolf in London over and over. I cannot watch Paranormal Activity over and over. Blair Witch, no, you see it once and you're done. It's kind of like it's a novelty film for me where, the novelty came out and we were all impressed by it and it made millions and billions of dollars because of that. But, its hype was what made it so amazing.
Yeah, Hostel and Saw are movies that I would certainly, put in that. I always thought Saw had the, genius idea, but I thought some of the, the acting was borderline atrocious at parts. Carrie Elwes and Danny Glover have never been that bad in anything they've ever been in their career. But that said, I look at where James Wan is now. He's made two of the most fun films of the year, so I can say that without slamming. He was a young guy when he directed, and probably not a lot of time when he was making it. But and then Hostel, I have all sorts of issues with. But so
I still like Hostel. Cabin Fever for me, and it's not to dog Eli. I think she's actually a really talented filmmaker, but. Cabin Fever's good. I like it, but I don't think he's the second coming of horror as everyone stated when that movie came out. I'm like, really?
I think
there's no villain in this, really.
It was like a sweet spot when that came out,
right.
where people were
timing.
like, we just seen Saw. We were hungry for something a little bit more extreme. Like Saw pushed the envelope, and then Hostel came out and was like, man, I pushed it even further.
Yeah.
And everybody was kind of clamoring for that. But, did we see him as the second coming of horror? I don't know.
Yeah, there's certain, it's hard. When you look back at it, if you throw around things like Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, those movies just keep getting better. Every couple of years, Shining, those movies, year after year, they improve. And that's why they're called classics. Because you look for a fault in them. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you watch them again and go, man, that was a good movie. And you just can't find those faults. So it's hard to find those kind of ones that are overrated. There's a lot of smaller ones like Wishmaster or something where I could be like, But anyway, that kind of, and then Amanda Oakes, this is something this is a perfect one to end on because we're going to answer it more next year. And it's, what are you looking, Amanda Oakes, who's been a huge supporter of the show.
Yeah.
Both on.
I bought her the battery. Remember I said I'd give it to one listener. She was the one. And she loved it.
So her question, very simple, and let's keep this to just one each. Otherwise, let's go for what are you looking forward to most in 2014 in terms of horror films? And she also asked about future trends, but I think we're going to touch on that more at the start of January.
Yeah.
So and including titles. But is there one title that you've seen something of that you're like, oh yeah, I need to?
I'm pretty psyched about the new Rec film. I'm such a huge fan of the Rec series. 3 was not as great for me. I loved 1, 2 was even
awesome.
better. 3 wasn't as great, but it was awesome. I mean, it's still compared to a lot of the stuff I saw this year or last year, it was awesome. But I'm really excited about 4.
Cool.
I give what movie in our next episode.
Oh yeah, I just had a flash forward. I think she did too. I think we just flashed forward.
I think I said Rec next episode.
So we apologize if there's a weird.
So I want, if you hear this again. So I'm not actually going to hold my movie off because I know I answer it for the double episode. I will say, you know what I'm excited about? I'm excited to see the evolution of horror television in the next year.
Yes.
Because there's going to be
a lot of shows.
Yeah, there's like the Rosemary's Baby miniseries, new seasons of Hannibal and Bates Motel.
Yeah.
God, there was 1 or 2 other things that. They announced the Wolfman series, which everyone's like, oh my God, the Wolfman. You know what? I've said it before. There was that FX show in the late 80s, early 90s.
Oh yeah,
Werewolf.
That's both one of our favorites.
Hey, if they make one based on the Wolfman that's like that, I'm all for it. So
Wolfman, maybe, I don't know. What was the Eli Roth one from last season that all of us
Hemlock
hated?
Grove.
Hemlock Grove.
Yeah, but that's not I mean, if they, if they do it like FX's Werewolf, I mean, Fox's Werewolf, then it could be really awesome. And the Del Toro one, The Strain.
Right.
There's a lot of all the shows returning and a lot of the new ones that are coming up. It's just like, I wish I was 12 years old now because there was no horror TV when I was that age.
It's crazy.
And
There was. I mean,
it was more
the
Twilight
anthology
Zone-y,
shows,
yeah.
because
But
you think like
Friday
we had like
13th,
Friday the
Twilight
13th,
Zone, Outer
Nightmares.
Limits.
We had Tales from the Crypt. I mean, we
But
had
not
all
the
these
way it is now.
Not
anthologies.
now, not the glut. that there
Mainstream.
is
Well,
now.
also the money behind it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
these
that's
are the
true.
mainstream. The biggest shows are Walking Dead. The biggest
Yeah,
money
that's-
makers,
that's the thing.
which is totally bizarre compared to where we came from. You also have Real Housewives of the Walking Dead coming as they do spin-offs in every city of America. We'll have Real Housewives San Jose Walking Dead. For me, I there's so many films. We'll have to look at a list. My interest is very piqued about Horns. I got to say,
Yeah.
just seeing Alexander Aja tackle something that was based on a book that also has a major
Hill.
actor in it, like Daniel Radcliffe. It makes me very curious what that will be. But the thing I'm most excited about, and this is the smaller film that we haven't seen yet, haven't heard about yet. I had no idea at the start of 2013 that I'd see a film called The Battery or Resolution and like them, that they would appear in my top 10. Like those were films that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And I follow trends and I read magazines and I follow blogs. So I still hadn't heard of them until I sat with a person who said, hey, you should watch that movie. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to, is the things that that aren't on my radar.
Yeah, that you don't even know.
Because that's the magic of being a cinephile, is the stuff that and the little discoveries we'll make from, DVD and screenings and weird shit like that.
Right.
So that's why we keep doing it. It'd be boring if we're just talking about, Exorcist every week.
Right. Okay, so let's wrap up. This will air on a Friday. So this Saturday at the Jump Cut, you've got Gremlins playing.
Yep, with an hour and a bit of Christmas cartoon animations on 60mm film. And then Gremlins on 60mm film. You could have seen Gremlins at other places around LA, but not for free. This will be the freest of all screenings you will go to.
So you can catch Gremlins.
I think it's going to be good. It'll be full, and I think it'll be full, and I think so people should probably come, prepared for that.
And as we hinted last week, it's official Saturday night at the New Beverly. There is a midnight screening of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2.
Which, this weekend?
Yes, Saturday night.
So after Gremlins,
after
people
Gremlins,
could go to Silent
midnight,
Night 2.
Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. If you were
and
here,
Mike Mendez's house.
And
You
Mike
could go from
Mendez's
there to
house,
Mike
and then
Mendez's
you
I
go
am.
from Mike Mendez's to go to Silent
Mike,
Night.
just so you know, I am leaving your house to go to
Night
to
2.
Silent Night, Deadly Night
That's
2.
pretty
We had Lee Harry, the director, on
he was
last
awesome.
week.
I got to write to him.
And remember, he said he'd come if they were doing it.
I mean, if he's going to come, I'll go with you, and I'll totally. If you want to.
Okay, we're bailing Mike Mendez's party at midnight.
We have to go.
And we could
We
leave the
have
Q&A
to.
with him. It'd be fun.
That would be.
Yes. So that's coming up. And that's about it. I think, tune in next week. We have an epic 2.5 hour look back on the best of 2013 horror.
Yes.
So thanks again.
And happy holidays, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody have a good time. Enjoy the relaxing time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.